Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next interview in our series of interviews. And today we've got a special guest from across the pond over in America. He's from Ohio, and it's Tom from the original Carnival Ride Pictures group. So, hello, Tom.
Hey Craig, how are you?
I am great, mate. How are you? How's life in America treating you?
It's rough right now. This virus is just taking everybody by storm, and just like you
Yeah,
guys, we're sitting home and just kind of wishing we were out doing the fairs. Fairs.
yep. That's what it's like over here too. Everybody's just sat waiting for this all to blow over. So, but I'm sure it'll blow over soon enough.
We're getting there here, so we're getting pretty lucky. We're on the curve.
Awesome. Right then. So first things first, where would you like to start?
What about some questions from people? Because it seems like people over there have sent some questions.
Yeah, I've got some questions. I've got to find them because you caught me on the hop.
Okay, well, when we talked the other day, we kind of laugh about this.
We
We
do.
took a
Like,
10-minute conversation to almost 4 hours.
well, that's true. And like I say, everybody who watches our podcast knows it's about as organized as nothing anyway. So, we don't do organized. It's not in our makeup. So,
Absolutely.
let me see. The first thing, while I'm looking for these questions, do you want to tell everybody about the Facebook group? Because that's a big
Sure,
thing. The more
it
we can
is.
promote that, the better.
The group is called The Original Carnival Ride Pictures, and it came out of my original, I started about 7 years ago, called Carnival Ride Pictures. And when I left that group a couple years ago, I decided to leave it for kind of personal reasons, more of the fact that we had almost 15,000 members from around the world, and it was a great time, except we ended up having a terrible accident here at our state fair.
Yeah.
And some of the things kind of got a little blown out of proportion. Some people said some things, and just when it went crazy, I decided to leave the group, and I didn't want any more of that issue or problem anymore. And we left it in the past, and that.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I say, we'll talk, I'm sure we'll talk about the accident the unfortunate accident that happened later in the podcast. Um,
Very briefly.
yeah. Yeah. Like I say, unfortunately, it's like we spoke about the other night. Like, I mean, every machine ride, mechanical ride across the world, at some point there's been some breakdown or an accident, and it's what positives that come out of them is really the thing that people should concentrate, not on the actual horrific side of them, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. I think if we wanted to start, I know Dave submitted a question through the chat or the Facebook site, and
Yeah,
he wanted to know why did I take a liking to his funfair post.
yep, that's a
And
good place to start.
yep, and for somebody like me who, as a child, grew up around fairs and festivals, um, I mean, I can remember them back all the way till I was just a wee little one. Growing up in Cleveland, Ohio, um, the fairs were a big part of our summer life, our spring life, our life that we had in the fall.
Yeah,
And my parents used to own a chain of drugstores, and it seemed like these parking lot carnivals, where the rides would come to the parking lot for maybe a week or so, would always just end up parking in front of one of our drugstores. And I was just amazed at the lights and the motions of the rides, or as you guys call them, machines. And ever since then, it was just so exciting.
yeah,
And
totally agree.
yep, and you get that bug.
See, that's the thing. I think that's a big thing. It's amazing the amount of people that are attracted by the lighting packages and just by the whole feel of the fairs. And I definitely agree that you get a bug for it. There's something about them that grabs you that, theme parks and other things don't. I'm sure you felt the same.
Absolutely. Yeah. So
Yeah,
when Dave asked what attracts you or what did attract me to watching the fun fair blogs, just scrolling through YouTube one day and as you do a search, YouTube will post up, if you look at this, this may interest you.
yeah.
And then I see Dave at Slothy Boggs and Cy and those guys, and they start doing these vlogs, and next thing you know, I'm just watching them because then I start looking at how everything is compared from the showmanship of your people that own the rides there, what the rides look like, and you start making comparisons. And then, Dave and Cy, they're just a team. Those guys work so good together. Cy with his Lou reviews, you wait for that every video. You
Yeah.
know, you, you can't imagine somebody going to the bathroom would have that much fun.
It depends how badly you need to go.
Yeah. Sometimes he finds that perfect tree too, so we're all good there too.
No, but that's the beauty of Dave and Si on Slothy Vlogs. See, I've spoke to Dave about this, and the beauty of it, why it's so organic, is because Dave never tells Si when the camera's on.
Right.
He just kind of swings it in front of him, and it's like the first reaction is what you get, and it's the natural reaction, and that's what their whole channel is based on. It's just totally organic, and it does
Absolutely.
and it does hook you.
Yep.
And Dave, if you're listening, you're going to have to pay me for all this free advertising.
Yeah, no, yeah, really, Dave. I want super chat. I want some of those dollar bills.
Or you have to check the super chats on first.
Oh, I will.
But yeah, the going back to the fairs, like I mean, I kind of have a small taste in it because of having lived over there in Ohio and the States. The difference between the way the rides are set up in America as opposed to the UK. Um, Now, from my point of view, I think the rides in the UK are a lot more show busy, if that makes sense, if
A-
you know what I mean.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Uh, the rides in America are kind of like they're they're almost like a I wouldn't say a dulled down version, but they're more a basic version of the rides. Would that be fair to say?
I think it is, and you know what, you are correct. And I think the reason behind that is though, and we spoke about this, the other day, just
Yeah,
shooting the crap, is that your showmen who actually own companies, like a major amount of rides. Let's say they carry 12 rides with their show or 20 rides with their show.
yeah,
A lot of the shows here, and you said, you've gone through some of the groups in Ohio. You
mm,
looked up Triple Treat shows in Cincinnati, Bates Brothers Amusements. These are
s-
companies that may pull 50 rides to each fair that they go to.
yeah.
And I
It
think when you have a smaller show, and I'm sorry to interrupt you,
No, that's fine. Carry on.
but when you have a smaller show in England, less sometimes equals more.
Absolutely, that's what I was about to say. The one thing I have kind of seen from looking into it, because like I say, I've been at the fairs in America, and but looking into it, the fun fairs in America seem to be controlled by much bigger companies. One company alone, like you just said, 50 to 100 rides, whereas in the UK you get a lot smaller family-driven fairs or even individual ownerships of fair rides, which means their focus is so much more on that one individual ride.
Hmm.
Um, whereas
Absolutely.
whereas the fairs in America, because it's effectively like a big conglomerate company. They've got 50 to 100 fairs, and they just want to send them out. So to a degree, the fares to those companies are just like numbers.
Absolutely. And that's what it is. I mean, I think any showman, their main desire, obviously, is to provide fun for people.
Yeah,
But at the same time, you need that money to get from spot to spot.
yeah.
And if if you get bad weather, people don't realize, and we talked about this the other day too. And unfortunately, I have to keep saying we talked about it because we
That's okay.
covered so much.
Yeah, we could have
But
put we could have put a 4 hour podcast out just from our conversation the other night.
and I think we would have had no listeners at the end because it was pretty good. But I think one of the things that people don't realize is, at least here in the States, how much stuff costs to buy, maintain, operate, and
Yeah,
provide workers to run this stuff.
absolutely.
You know, I mean, the new rides here, American money wise, some of your newer rides are over $1 million.
Yeah, and I don't think people grasp how much. It's exactly what you just said. I don't think people grasp how much these rides actually cost. Um,
Uh, I have a
I
good friend who, and I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
No, it's
They
your
just,
podcast.
they,
You interrupt as much as you
hey,
want.
hey, we, this is what makes us good. They just bought a new funnel cake trailer. And I know that that funnel cake trailer, and it's beautiful, and there's a picture on our Facebook site,
Mm,
that was upwards of almost $200,000 to serve funnel
funnel
cakes.
cakes. Yeah, but that's it. And in many respects, that's why over here in the UK, because the fairs are very family orientated to a degree and run by families. That's why you get a lot of the older rides, but they're improved over time. And
Sure,
because the family fairs and that very rarely can go out and spend two, three, 400,000, 500,000 plus on a new ride. So the way to create a new ride is to take your old ride, strip it down, and totally renew it.
for a
The per-
fraction of the price.
Exactly, the perfect example of that over here in the UK is Cy Abbott's New York, New York. If you saw pictures of that ride when Cy first got it, it's unrecognizable to what it is now.
Sure, I've
But
seen it, and it looks beautiful.
oh, it's an absolute stunning ride now. But when he brought it, it didn't have a roof. It was just plain pink cars. But to buy that ride new now, you wouldn't get much change out of. It must be heading up towards 750,000 easy, probably more. Like I mean, I wouldn't know the exact figure.
Absolutely.
So I think
Yeah,
that's the
I was gonna
difference.
say most of those big rides are so expensive. Like those Himalayas, New Yorks, um,
Yeah, the freakouts,
uh,
the top
freakouts,
scan.
fireballs, any of those top spins, whatever, $1 million plus.
Yeah. So,
Eh,
like, I
Go ahead.
mean, the question I have about the American fairs, because they're ran by big companies, they have like a figurehead company. The fairs themselves, the showmen, are they employees of the big company, or
N-
do they
No,
sublet the rides? Is it like a franchise kind of thing, or
it depends on the fair or the festival. Like for instance, the Ohio State Fair. The old company that we used to have in there called Amusements of America, they were from New Jersey.
yeah,
They have like three giant units, as they call it. So the whole amusement company is broken up into three units that travel different parts of the eastern seaboard or somewhat of the Midwest at the same time.
yeah,
So when they would come into Ohio, they may sublet a couple rides in from other companies here in Ohio because they
yeah.
can't fill the lineup of
Okay,
because most of your county fairs will probably bring in, like, we have 88 counties in the whole state of Ohio, which we talked about.
yeah,
And each county has its own fair, which is like that is something that people look forward to.
yeah,
They cancel, like sometimes these will start while school's in session. And there's so much of these, like you would know, in parts of southern Ohio where it's a lot of agricultural and deal with animals, that they cancel school for a week to go to
yeah,
the fair and show their animals and stuff. But not getting off track is so most of the county fairs, one ride company can play county fair, and that's what they rely on
Mm,
because you can bring in 25 to maybe 50 rides total between adult rides and kids rides. But
yeah,
when you get to the Ohio State Fair and you do a million people in 10 days, you have to bring in rides from major rides from like all over like Florida or Georgia or the East Coast just to be able to play those fairs.
yeah. You see, that for me is where the difference between the UK fairs and the American fairs happens. The UK scene, we have like the county fairs over there. That's very similar to the fair set up in the UK where they visit from town to town, and they're
Yep,
normally there for a week and then they move on to the next town.
right.
Where it changes is with the state fairs. Um, there's nothing really in the UK to compare with a state fair. The nearest we
That's,
probably have that will compare is Winter Wonderland, possibly the Goose Fair, possibly the Hall Fair.
that's
But
what I was about to say. Yeah, those are about the only thing that could compare to a state fair.
but even those don't compare, because those are just fair based. And like I'm about to ask you, if you can describe to the listeners what a state fair consists of, because it's more than just a fun fair, isn't it? It's a whole
And
thing.
it's a really neat exhibition, I would call it, because like in Ohio we have so much agriculture that deals with farming, that deals with raising animals, cows, sheep, pigs, any of that.
Yeah,
It's more the celebration of the state of Ohio. So, really the smallest part is the rides part of it.
yeah.
There's a lot of showing of your animals. They have livestock sales. They raise money for the competitors. It's pretty a neat thing. But then
Having
again,
been there, it really is.
yeah, and like the Ohio State Fairgrounds, it is massive.
Yeah, it's huge. It really
Mhm.
is. It's hard to convey to the people in the UK just how big the state fairs are because having been to the Ohio one, like I mean, we're comparing it to the Goose Fair, but the state fairs, you have full on concert lineups of some of the biggest stars at the time. You have tractor pulls, like I mean, as
Yep.
Tom's just said, they are huge.
And but we also have smaller festivals in Ohio. You have one about a half hour south from where I'm at in Columbus.
Yeah,
Um, that's called the Circleville Pumpkin Show. This is a world-renowned festival that people come from all over the world to celebrate a pumpkin,
yeah,
a round orange inanimate object, which is so funny. And this fair lasts 3 or 4 days. It happens in the end of September, October, and you can still draw almost a half a million people to this in 4 days.
yeah.
And it doesn't matter if it's raining. I've actually worked it when it's raining, snowing, 80 degrees, 20 degrees, people will still show up no matter what.
Well, yeah. It's like I mean, the other big difference I find, and we actually spoke about this the other night. Um, it's the type of rides that get taken to the smaller fairs. Um, I found in America, the smaller county fairs, you get like small family rides, whereas over here we get like you said yourself the other night, um, we get rides at our standard little town fairs that you would only see at the Ohio State Fair.
Which is amazing to me. I mean, knowing like what rides take to set up. You can take a wild mouse roller coaster and you can put that up for a week at one of your fun fairs.
Yeah,
You would never see that at a county fair in the state of Ohio. And you're
yeah,
lucky to see one of them at the state fair. And these guys are doing it at fairs that only last 3 or 4 days. That's incredible.
yeah, and it's the same with some of the other rides. Like I mean, you've got the big XL XXL rides, you've got the freakouts, you've got the all of them, you know, the boosters, you've got the extremes. I think the technology with the rides has gone so quick that they can put these rides up so quickly in such a small area that effectively every small fair that goes around is effectively like a mini state fair.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I
But
think that,
go ahead. I'm
sorry,
sorry.
and say I think that's a big credit to the showmen that go with the fairs over here. And that's a subject we'll get onto in a minute. But to get these rides up and working in the kind of footprints they're normally given is really an achievement. It's quite amazing, really.
Oh yeah, because you have to know how big your ride is when it's before it's unloaded. And then once your ride is laid out, you have to know the distance, front and back, left and right, compared to another ride. Um, but like for instance, and I'm sure you've seen, you guys call them put ups or whatever, or setups.
Yeah.
Like how long does it take to put up a waltzer from start to finish? How many hours?
It depends what make. Um, the newer ones, they literally just fold off the back of a truck, so they could probably get one of those up in 2.5, 3 hours.
Okay.
Uh,
But
the
now
older
like an
one,
older one.
the older ones with the wooden platforms. Uh, See, Dave would know the answer to this because he actually had a setup video. I'd say you're probably looking at the best part of a day.
Okay. And now see, we talked about this, that your waltzer is like our tilt-a-whirl.
Yeah,
Now the waltzer is a lot more intricate, being that you have a top, you have lights, you have sound. You don't find a lot of that on a tilt-a-whirl.
no,
But a tilt-a-whirl is not something that you just unfold off the back of a truck. You literally have to put your center mount, you have to set up your track, you have to level out your track, then you got to build up the sides, and you got to put down your floors, then you got to put your cars on. That's 8 hours.
yeah, that's exactly what they do with the old waltzers. It sounds like exactly the same setup. They set up the basic center mount, then they put the track up, then it's a case of putting the floor on, then they put the cars on, and they basically build the sides and the roof up around it.
But I think everything now is showman wise here in the States. They want something that you can almost get everything up in one day. And I think that's a big thing because, our fairgrounds here are still not small.
Yeah.
They're pretty large, so you have to roll out a lot of wire from the generators. You have to hook it up. Um, and the one thing about Ohio Showman that really impresses me the most, no matter if it's triple treat shows, for instance,
Yes.
the family that owns that show, and I'm very good friends with all of them, and I guess we'll get into it later. I mean, I've worked in the
Mm.
fair since I was 13 years old,
Yeah, we're going to
but
get onto that.
yeah, but his rides are so amazingly clean, and he takes such good care of them. I
Yes,
always say you, I
I
was
was
gonna
on
say
their
you could drop a
website
piece of food. Yep, yep,
and they are stunning. Their rides are like, I mean, they are like Tom just said, they are absolutely spotless. Um,
yep.
they
And you
all,
can eat. And I make a joke. I said their rides are so clean, you
mm.
could drop a piece of food on it and not have to worry about it getting dirty.
Yeah, like I say, if you look at their website or search their rides on the video, literally everywhere they go, their rides look like they've just come out of a showroom.
Yeah. And I'm sure we can put a link up on this to maybe their website for
Yeah,
people to click on, because
they'll be,
I think a lot of people in England and Europe that we're talking about, they maybe want to see the American rides, not from what you see on YouTube, but you go and you see these smaller shows, because the
mm,
stuff you see on YouTube are all these giant shows that travel from state to state, even some place shows in Mexico, then they come back to the States, and then next thing you know, they're up in Canada in 2 months playing shows.
yeah, yeah.
But
We'll put links in the description
yeah,
for all of these.
hmm
But the ironic thing of looking at the Triple Treat show is the similarity of the ride lineups. It's like I said to you the other night. It's strange because they're so alike, but then they're so different.
right.
And
Uh, Well, we were talking the other day about like some of the Matterhorn rides.
Yeah,
Some of the Matterhorn type rides in Europe don't even have tops. They will
no.
have that they will have that giant bar in the middle that says like the name of a ride with a picture on the back, and that's it. And
Yeah,
over here in the States, you always have tops.
the majority of Matterhorns here have an open front. Like you say, they normally have an open front. They'll have a backboard, and sometimes the back area is covered. But then you get onto the premium Matterhorns like Ice Jet,
We
and
talked about that. Oh my God, that thing is so beautiful.
yeah, it is by far away the most. You got Ice Jet, and I think there's one called Ice Blast, and
Hmm.
they're like your premium Matterhorns, as in the setup of the ride. They may not be the best ride, but they're most definitely the premium to look at. And they are totally fully enclosed. And because of that is why they look so amazing, especially at night.
And if you ever notice, or if nobody's ever noticed, when you go to a fair, you always notice the rides are the most has the most people on it, or they seem the busiest, is because the way they look at night with all the brand new LED technology.
Oh, without a doubt. And like I say, in the UK now, I think this is where the UK is so far ahead of the US fun fair scene. They've they've adopted LEDs so much and they're doing so much with them now. The rides look absolutely amazing. And it's like I said to you the other night, it's not the first time you see them. You can like see a ride, then go back to a fair 2 months later and see that ride again, and it still takes your breath.
Absolutely. And I think too is that it's not taking away from the American showman to the British or English showman. Um, for the guys here that really take care of their rides, if they still maybe have that older lighting package with the light bulbs, but not going as far back as the light bars,
Yeah.
when you go to put an LED package on a machine or a ride, the cost is just so high.
Yeah. Although
I
I
think a
will
friend,
sorry, I
I was
will
gonna say a friend of ours did a Predator ride from Triple Treat, and he redid his, and I forgot how much he told me, and I'm going, God, price of two new cars.
yeah. Plus I think there's a lot of rides out there. I think a lot of rides benefit from the LED lighting packages, but I also believe there's a lot of rides out there that an LED lighting package would destroy them.
For
Um,
instance, Carter Fun Fair, they had that old style Lupo
yeah,
plane.
yeah,
You can't put LEDs on that. It
no.
just doesn't to me look right.
If you put LEDs on a car, anything at a car at Steam Fair, you would absolutely destroy it. And there's a lot of, like, I mean, out there, there's a lot of the older style waltzers with the hand painted cars, the hand painted decals, and if you put LEDs on those, it would absolutely destroy them. So I think the lighting packages, as much as I love them, I think it's a fine line between what you can put them on and what you can't. So that's
So I think we answered one of Dave's questions in a very long roundabout way, but why do I like the the watching the fun fairs, or I've become good friends with you and
yeah.
Dave and Cy and Connor, and I watch Andy and those guys. It's because when you guys do that stuff, it's your vids and podcasts and stuff, there's a passion behind it.
I
And
think I think with the fun fairs, they it's like I said earlier about getting the bug. I think with fun fairs, I can only speak personally, but they draw that out of you.
oh, they
You know,
do. And all of them are good. We know Andy likes to go to theme parks. And nothing against Andy and theme parks, but anybody, in all honesty, can go to a theme park and take videos. But
yeah.
what Andy does in his own way, in his personality and his knowledge, he not will only show you the ride or the roller coaster or whatever it is, he knows the history behind it. He knows who made it. He knows how fast it is. And you don't get that from a lot of people.
You see, in many respects with a theme park vlogging, you have to, because the reality is a theme park isn't going to, it's very rare a theme park will change. So if you're going to vlog a theme park more than once, the likelihood is your vlogs are going to be pretty identical. So
Absolutely.
the only way you can make a theme park look different is by knowing about the rides and being able to vocalize to the viewers, you know what I mean? Because if you just go to a theme park and just record the same roller coaster over and over again, the reality is that roller coaster isn't going to move. And that's one of the beauties of the fairs that I've found is every fair you go to is different. Even when it's on the same grounds, that fair is different to how it was before. And I love that.
And your reactions are different.
Oh,
You know,
absolutely.
you can go to, like you said before, most of the amusement companies will come to your area twice a year, one in the spring, one in the fall.
Yep.
The way I react, I'm gonna kid Connor about this, but I'm like Connor. I am so not a fan of spinning ride. When I was a kid, I could ride the tilt roll for hours, never have a problem. Get it on me now, or if I get on it now, I'm puking all over the place. Can't do it. And that's fine. But Dave's pretty fearless. He'll get on there except for a drop tower where he
Yeah.
screams like a woman, which is
Uh,
great. Thanks, Johnny, for that. Johnny, I got to give you a shout out. That was
yes.
amazing. Thank you.
D- Dave on Hangover. Still the best footage of any funfair vlog I've ever seen.
Absolutely. And the way that Simon tortured him. Oh, Simon. I and that's why I invite these guys over because you think you look, I've invited Cy and Connor and you to come back home and Dave and I said, you guys get here and I'll take care of you. We'll go to the fairs, we'll go to the amusement parks
Absolutely.
because I think those videos would just be amazing.
Well, I'd like to get Dave on the drop tower on King Dakar. Can you imagine him on that?
He'd have, well, I don't, I think you would get a good reaction, but not as good for the fact is, yes, for the height, he would scream
Oh,
like a little girl that he was on that. But I think he would have to change his pants under because, it's not 250 feet, it's 400 feet.
it's 400, 126 meters, 415 foot, and it falls
So
at
Dave,
90 miles an hour.
yeah, Dave, look that one up on YouTube.
Yeah.
That's your
I
homework assignment.
yeah. I think Dave would, and I think most people would die on that thing. Like, I mean, it's horrendously high. Like, I mean, there's high and then there's horrendously high. And Zumanjiro is horrendously high.
It just, it's bad enough when you go on those rides, like
Yeah.
Top Thrill Dragster at Cedar Point. It's 0 to 120 miles an hour in 3.5, 4 seconds, and then you're climbing 400 feet. But when you crest the top of that hill and you look down, I can't see doing a drop tower that tall. No way.
I think if you were there, I think you'd have to. I think it's one of those things that even though you know you're gonna hate it, and even though it's gonna give you heart palpitations and you're gonna need a change of pants, I think it's there, so you've got to do it. Like I
Oh
mean, I'm
yeah.
I'm terrified of heights. Like I mean, I go dizzy on a thick carpet, but I think I'd have to do it.
Well, I would do it in a heartbeat,
But
but that's because we would be with a great group of people that would do it.
absolutely, I think that has a big bearing on it, which is it's one of the things that's been spoken about after this lockdown's finished about all the vloggers getting together and doing Winter Wonderland or Hull Fair whenever it's on. So, because I know that Johnny wants to do a hangover with all the vloggers on it, which would
Well,
be, I think that would be brilliant personally.
I think it would be brilliant if you can get all the vloggers there on the same day to do it.
Oh, that's the easy part.
Well, like
That's
you
the
saying, everybody lives so far apart.
yeah. it's strange how we all kind of we live like about 500-600 miles apart, but we all seem to converge on the same areas.
I think what we need to do is I'm going to try. I have a friend of mine that lives in Cleveland, and she started watching the vlogs for like Winter Wonder. Can we go there? And I'm like, sure, let's go. You know, I think we can get over there and just have a blast.
Yeah. Well, the good news for this year is it sounds like Hangover may possibly be there this year. It sounds like they haven't issued the contracts yet, but they have been given a verbal, not a verbal agreement, but they've basically said if it's on, we want you to come over. So it's looking a lot more promising for that.
Oh, I couldn't wait. But see, that's what another thing that gets me is those rides that come over from Germany and Bavaria and Switzerland and Denmark or wherever they come from the European countries, travel that far by boat, truck, car, whatever it is, to play
Yeah.
that fair is amazing.
Well, yeah, it's like we spoke about the other night, and it's one of the things that you mentioned, and it's very true. When people complain about the prices of Winter Wonderland, they complain about the price of Olympia Looping. But what they don't understand is behind that £9 ride fee is that ride takes. I think you said it's 43 trucks to come from
Yeah,
Munich.
43 or 45 trailers. So that's
40.
including, yeah, your all your track,
Yeah,
your power, your maintenance trucks. It's all computer controlled. They have one truck that's strictly, I think, that runs everything by computer. It's amazing.
yeah, and they've got to get 43 trucks from Munich to Hyde Park. They've got to hire cranes to build it up. They've got to get the people to build it up. Then it's got to be tested. It's got to be ran and everything. And the cost just for that one ride to do Winter Wonderland for those 2 to 3 weeks is
I couldn't even figure it
astronomical.
out. Yeah,
And so everybody seems to think they make an absolute fortune at £9 a ride. I bet they don't make much more than breaking even. Like
I
I mean,
bet you they break even, maybe a little bit more. But like we talked about, it's the publicity of being able to say this ride was at Winter Wonderland, is one of the biggest festivals in England or Europe or wherever.
well, I think what it's given that ride is that from coming to Winter Wonderland, that Olympia Looping is now known as the premier traveling coaster in the world. And I
Oh,
don't know,
well, of course.
and I don't know whether it would have had that had it not done Winter Wonderland.
I don't see anything better than that anywhere in the world that equals.
No, there's a few around, but there's an indoor one that Mark from Nationwide Amusements was talking about, and I can't remember its name, but there's not many now.
No. I mean, I mean, you have your normal, we call them wildcats here in the
Yeah.
country, here in the States. We do have some crazy mouse. There are a couple small single looping coasters. I think they're Pimpharis, or I forget who's making them,
It may well be Pinfari's,
but
Pinfar knee
but there's not,
breakers.
yeah, not many.
Yeah, there's not many over here now. There's not many. Look, apart from the Wild Mouse, the Wild Mouse are probably the biggest travelling coasters in the UK. Other than that, the only time you see fairly large coasters is Winter Wonderland with Wild Mouse XXL and Munich Looping.
Now, see, that wild mouse is really neat that's at Winter Wonderland because it's a standard crazy mouse or wild mouse, but it's half indoors and half outdoors.
Um,
You know, you know how the ride's going to go. You know the loops, or I mean, you know the curves, but when it's enclosed with flashing lights, it really throws you for a loop.
See, you're thinking of Ice Mountain. You're thinking of Ice Mountain.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm on about Wild Mouse XXL. It's like
Okay.
a it's like a wild mouse, but it's twice as high. It doesn't spin. but it's a wild coaster. It is really good. It's if you look on the Winter Wonderland vlogs, it's got the huge lighting package. But yeah, the one that you're talking about, which is a Wild Mouse indoors, which is it's called Ice Mountain. It is a really good ride. That just spent a year at a theme park up in Skegness, Fantasy Island. So, but that is a really good ride too. But like I say, I find myself now being drawn more to the fairground rides than the roller coasters at them. Um, Basically, because I find them more, as Simon would say, they're more thrilling. They've got more forces, etc.
I have a question for you.
Fire away.
You're, I'm really putting you in a spot here because this could burn a bridge or two. What do you like more? Now, just overall thrill. Do you like the European British rides or do you like the American? Because, as we talk, there's some rides in Europe that you don't have there that we have here. For instance, Dave was even talking about it earlier. The zipper.
Yeah,
You
we
don't
used
have zippers in England anymore.
we used to have zippers at every fair. In the 80s, you couldn't go to a fun fair where there wasn't a zipper.
Why
And
don't they have them now?
I don't know, they all just died out. I think there's one up north somewhere that's working, and there's one that's just sat rotting somewhere. But there was a time when you could not go to a fun fair in the UK and not see a zipper, and they just disappeared, which is a real shame because they are a fantastic ride. Like, I mean, I used to ride those when I was like 14 and 15. That's how far back I'm going.
You're old.
I'm ancient, mate. Absolutely ancient.
I'm 50, so I get you. I
I'm not.
understand.
I'm not that ancient.
Oh, thanks. But I mean,
Um,
really, dude, what do you prefer? And
I, pre-
I mean, in a
I,
non-biased, I mean, I know you could say I love my English rides because the way they look,
I
but
love the English rides because of the way they look. Um,
sure,
like, I mean, actually, I wouldn't even say the English rides. I tell a lie. I love KMG rides,
right?
and they're German, so technically, I love the German rides. I
Can't
love
can't beat the Huss,
I love Huss rides. I love the KMG rides. I think the PWS's rides are brilliant. I think all these rides are fantastic. Like, I mean, if you had to put me on the spot, my favorite ride is a ride called Extreme. In fact, I put it
Okay.
on your Facebook.
Yep,
I put
we
it on the
did.
group because
Beautiful ride.
it's absolutely beautiful. But on top of that, it's beautiful to look at, but it's also a fantastic ride to ride. And obviously the one that I do want to ride more than anything is Atmosphere Creator, because that
That
thing is
looks amazing.
stunning. And the thing
That
for
looks amazing.
me, the thing for me with Atmosphere Creator is it looks that good and it's 70 years old.
Right. That thing,
So
it looks amazing. When I saw the pictures, I was like, wow.
yeah. So I can't remember ever seeing rides like that in America. Because as much as I rode some fantastic stuff in America, I think the atmosphere around the rides, because of the lighting packages, because of the music and the way it's done, slightly just about gives the UK the edge.
Well, and that's
But
what we went when we talked about before, the lighting and the sound packages that you don't find in the States. You
yeah,
do find in England, and I think that's what makes those rides
yeah.
much
But
better.
that said, if you was asking me what do I prefer, things the UK fairs or say the Ohio State Fair, I'd take the state fairs because there's so much variety there, and you can literally spend a week at a state fair and not cover the whole grounds.
Yep.
And that I loved that at the Ohio State Fair, because that is the only one, unfortunately, I ever got to go to. But they've got everything. If you want to see a tractor pull, that's there. If you want to see Monster Truck, that's there. If you want to go and see a music concert, that's there. The choice and variety of the foods there will blow your mind.
Stuff you've never even seen before.
Oh yeah, stuff you couldn't even imagine. Um,
Stuff that's better than breakfast in a can like Dave cooked.
oh,
That's what you
that's
find it as Dave.
that anything that better than breakfast in a can. That pretty much covers everything on the food chain. I'd rather have Wuhan bat than Dave's breakfast.
Sorry,
But
Dave,
yeah,
we had to do that to you.
but it's got everything there. So as a whole package, the state fairs are pretty hard to beat. But if we're just talking about the fun fair, I'd go for the UK.
And when you talk about a state fair, it's kind of like a county fair. The county fairs are just a smaller state fair.
Yeah,
You have to look at,
they're like
you
a
have to
shrunk
look at,
down version.
oh yeah, but you have to look at your cost.
Yeah,
Um, and you can tell your listeners because you know the value of the dollar and pound and the euro and all that. When you go to a state fair, or okay, a state fair, it may cost you, I think it's $8 to get in to that massive lot,
yeah,
and almost everything is free except for the food, the concerts, and the rides,
yeah.
and even an all-day wristband. Now that's one thing here that they do a lot of that I didn't see too much of in the English videos.
It's happening a lot over here now. A lot of the fairs now, they're not doing all day wristbands. What they're normally doing is an afternoon session and an evening session, and you can
Okay.
pay £8 for a wristband, and you get like 4 hours.
Now, how
Uh,
much is £8? Is that about $20
no, that's
roughly?
about $12.
Okay. Now, like if you go to our state fair, and I think you may have done this, is you buy a wristband, and back then, I think you were here in what, 2000,
Yeah,
2001? Maybe it was like 12 or 15 American dollars.
it wasn't a
But
lot.
yeah, but now it's only like $22.
Yeah, and I do remember that once you brought the wristband, you got that for the full day.
Yeah, it's all day. So if the ride's open at 10 o'clock in the morning, and like say on Fridays, they may close at midnight, you
Yeah.
can get 12 hours of riding time for $20.
Well, that's it. That's the other thing with the state fair that's different to the UK is the late times of day close. Like, I mean, over here, you probably won't get many fairs that'll be open past 9, 10 o'clock. Over there, you can be riding past midnight.
Yeah, the state fair. Most of your county fairs, um, and it's neat how they run though. The county fairs seem to be open really early. The rides don't, maybe 10 o'clock in the morning.
Mm,
Um, but some food trailers open up early because they serve breakfast.
yeah.
But rides and games are usually 10 a.m. till 10 at night or 11 o'clock at night.
Because if I remember rightly, the county fairs in America, they're more geared towards families and younger children.
Yes,
So there's a lot more emphasis on the families going there. There's a lot more what we'd call in the UK juvenile rides, rides for small children.
yes,
And whereas the state fair is more adult stroke teenager based, I'd say.
yeah, absolutely.
So it's kind of we kind of mix the two here. So you kind of get it's very similar. You get the younger kids and the families during the day, and as it goes into the evening, you get the annoying teenagers, and then you pretty much have the adults.
Correct. Absolutely.
So it's kind of like we said, there's a lot of similarities between the UK fairs and the American fairs, but then they are totally different. But they both,
I think English fairs a lot of it too is heritage.
yes,
Not only for the families that always the showmen that play the fairs. Like I saw one documentary on the Goose Fair, I think is it.
yes.
He was talking about his family's been doing that fair for 100 years.
Well, yeah, a lot of it. That is the big thing in the UK that's different to the American. The American, like we say, are normally owned by a big company and then kind of feather out from that. Over
Right.
here, the fairs have been handed down through generations. Like, I mean, even now, you can see the next generation of showmen already been trained almost with the kids on the rides.
Yep.
And the heritage and the history of it is a really big thing, and it's something I was gonna we was moving on to is the actual showman because as you can imagine, I don't know what it's like in America because I can't remember, but in here the showmen get a really bad reputation that they don't deserve. It goes back to the 80s, 70s and 80s where there was always this implication, oh, they're gypsies, they're travelers, they're gonna wreck the place, they're gonna,
Steal
and
your kids, all
yeah,
that stuff.
that kind of thing. And that reputation, to a degree, has followed through totally unfairly. And from getting to know the showman in the brief time we have, these people are hardworking, really proud people. And they're proud of not only the rides that they own and care for, but they're really proud of the heritage that, like you say, can go back 100, 200 years. And they are so knowledgeable. If you
Oh,
get and
sure.
I say this to anybody listening to this, if you go to a fun fair and you get a chance to stand and talk to a ride up or a showman or anybody there, take the time to talk to them because first of all, they are totally knowledgeable about everything about that ride and that fair going back as long as you like. But they are the most genuine, honest working people you are going to meet. And I can't speak highly enough of them. And that's the end of my political broadcast.
No, no, and I think I'm pretty much the same way. And I'm going to name names because these people deserve it.
Yeah,
Um, when I started working, I was 13 when I worked my first fair, and I worked for a gentleman by the name of Henry Brewer, who was part of a company called Kissel Brothers out of Cincinnati.
yep,
But their family had been in, like Henry and his wife, all they had were games and food. I never really didn't like working the rides as much. It was exciting, but I liked the interaction with people and game,
yeah,
you know, and that for me was great. But his family, Henry's wife, Lori, their family had been in and are still in the business for 100 and some years.
yeah,
And like I said to you before when we spoke on the phone, on one of his beautiful airbrush generator trailers, it said, "Our business is your pleasure."
yeah. I think that sentence in a word sums up the mentality of the showman. Because I honestly think that's what they base everything they do on. Their business is to make your time the best possible time you can have on their ride.
I think it's to get it out of your normal reality of day. I looked at it as when I walked onto a fairgrounds or I walked into a parking lot carnival or I went on to a state fair lot, whatever I was doing, whether I was going there or I still go now, it's
Yeah,
like you're going to a fantasy land that
yeah.
only uh, comes into your dreams at night,
Oh, I totally
because
agree.
when that fair's gone, you go by the fairgrounds the next day when everything's packed up and moved on, and you're like, wow, I was just here yesterday and I was having a blast.
I totally agree. I used to say that about theme parks. I used to say when I walk into a theme park, the minute I walk through the door, the real life stops. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm just, I stop being dad. I stop having to worry about bills, and I just become one of the boys with my lads, and we just go and have fun. And the fun fairs are exactly the same. You can leave all your worries at the door. You're there. You got all the flashing lights. You got the smell of the machines, the smell of diesel, the smell of the food. You got the showman there and everything, and it's just that escape from reality, if you know what I mean.
Sure. Like we discussed the other day, I live an hour and 15 minutes from Kings Island. I mean, I live in the center of the state, and
Yeah,
obviously you know where it is.
yeah, I do.
And I have Cedar Point 2 hours to the north. There's a certain level, whether it be like when I lived in Cleveland, it was 40 minutes to Kings Island or to Cedar Point, just a
Yeah.
little drive west. And you were excited knowing that you were going to Cedar Point. But
uh,
on this long causeway, because Cedar Point is out like on the middle of an island almost,
yeah.
and you got to see the signs to get there, or you actually, like now, you can see the roller coasters from Cedar Point from like 10 miles away on a clear day from the interstate.
Yeah.
And you see that, and that 10-mile drive seems like it takes an hour because you're so excited.
That's very true. Like, I mean, the nearest we have to that is when me and my boys are driving to Thorpe Park, and it's because they've got a similar rides. But about a mile out, you can see the top of Stealth, and sometimes when you're on the way there in the morning, you can see it testing. And that last mile, my boys are hanging out the windows, excited and everything. And it's the same when we're going to fairs. That first time when you turn the corner and you see all the lights, you know, those few minutes you take trying to find somewhere to park seem like forever.
Right.
And
Well,
it's
and
like,
you can see that in Dave and Si's videos. They
yeah,
park the car and they're like, ugh, and then all of a sudden, or they're driving there, and then when they get there and they get out of the car and Si rolls his cigarette and Dave gets excited,
yeah,
you can see the excitement in their eyes.
it is. I think it's and if you're somebody who doesn't get it, it might look slightly childish for grown men like myself and that getting excited about going to a fun fair. But unless you've got that passion for these things, I suppose it does look strange. But there's a lot worse things to be passionate about.
Oh, absolutely.
And the thing is, being passionate about it, like yourself, you're passionate about something that's got a history that goes back. Like, I mean, the Goose Fair goes back to 12, I think it's 1264. You know, this is our heritage, it's our history, and just because it's frowned upon by certain sections, ignorant sections, I might add, of society,
Yeah,
these fairs need protecting, the heritage needs protecting, the tradition of these people needs protecting, and at the moment they're up against it from every angle.
sure.
And I just hope when all this is over, everybody goes out and supports these people, and
Absolutely. Because they're,
they're gonna need it.
one thing I've learned here in the States, um, the people that do this type of stuff, the rides and the games and the food, they don't qualify or I think they just passed it into law that they do. But under any other guidelines at any other time except for when the virus is hit,
Mm.
they would never qualify for an unemployment or a small business loan for the money that they're missing.
I do believe the fairs over here at the moment do not qualify. At the moment,
Yeah,
they are trying everything they can to make a living. Like, I mean, I've put on our Facebook a few times. There's a fair, Danta's Fair, and they've fired up their concession stores to try and deliver food, just to try and bring in some
absolutely.
revenue from somewhere. And that's the thing; these people are really struggling, and they're not getting any help from the government. In fact, the
And I think
government,
I think that's where you and I'm going to get political here, but I think that's where your government should step in because if these people have to pay taxes on the money that they earn, then
oh,
they should
absolutely,
be, you know, and that's the one thing is I didn't understand when I was talking to Dave one day. I didn't understand what they call the red diesel tax. I didn't
yeah,
know what that was.
yeah. There's
I didn't
a
know.
there's a there's a tax on red diesel in the UK, and up till now, the fun fairs have been exempt. They've had a red diesel exemption. The government in the last budget announced they were going to scrap the red diesel exemption, which means that the fun fairs are going to have to pay a shitload of tax for their red diesel, which is going to put the price up, which will put some of the fun fairs out of business because they just will not be able to run their rides. And it's the,
See,
the government. The government don't have to do that.
so
They
you
just
guys have like two different types of diesel there.
Yeah, basically red diesel has a dye put in it, and it's only supposed you can't use it in trucks or normal cars and that's why they put the dye in it. It's for industrial use, I do believe. I'm sure if I've got that wrong, somebody will correct me in the comments, but it's what they use to run their generators, not only for their rides, but their homes. Um,
Right.
and up till now, they haven't had to. They've been tax exempt, and the government have decided to take the exemption away.
That's
So
horrible.
exactly, and so this year so far, you've had the showman. They've had to cancel loads of fairs at the start of the year because we got hit with all these hurricane storms, one after another,
Right.
and the floods. Then they got hit with the fact the government were taking away their tax exemption,
And
and
then the
then
virus.
the virus has hit, and they've had to close down for whoever knows how long. But
And
what?
then on top of that, this is when, when they have that couple 2, 3 months layoff,
Yeah,
that they've taken the money that they've earned from the season before, they put it into the maintenance, the repair, the rebuilding of the rides.
yeah, and now
They,
they need
they
to get it back.
you can't get it back.
No, and the thing is, you know, they've missed some of the biggest fairs, and now they're talking. I mean, it's got to the point now where we're talking, will Goose Fair and Hull Fair be on? And like, I mean, that's October, and
Right.
you're heading right into the end of the season. They could stand to miss an entire season, and they're not
And
getting any financial help from the government or anywhere.
see, like here, when the fairs, like we were talking the other day, excuse me, your fairs start up, and I saw videos already from this year before the virus came. Your
Yep,
fairs
February.
start in February. Now,
Yeah,
your weather in February is pretty much like the same weather that we have here in Ohio in February. It's cold, it could snow, it could rain,
it can do. Yeah, it's normally the rain, to be honest.
but the people that show up is amazing how many people will still show up for that fun fair.
Oh yeah, like I mean, in the public, there's a lot of love for the fun fairs. There really is. There are
You,
sections that look down on them, but there's a lot of love for the fun fairs because it's like yourself, it's like Dave and everybody. We can all remember going to a fun fair with our parents, our grandparents when we were children. And I think when we go to the fun fairs, it takes us back to when we were kids. And so there's a
now,
lot of love for the fun fairs. The
now see,
downside,
go ahead, I'm
sorry.
sorry.
No, carry on.
No, I was just gonna say, here the fairs don't usually start till like mid-October, but they're not fairs. We call them festivals.
Yeah,
Or like you may do a weekend festival in a certain city that wants to celebrate, say, cherry pie. That's just an example. Or
do you
like
have a
they'll
festival for tin breakfasts? Because
no, we don't.
Dave will go to
Da-
that one.
yeah, Dave will have to start that one. But your county fairs will usually start around June, end of May, beginning of June,
Yeah.
and then they run through September, and that's it.
No,
So the time that our show operators start playing either in parking lots, like they'll go to like commercial shopping centers or wherever they'll set up for some do
yeah,
10 days, some do 7 days, some even do 2 weeks. That money is to get them down the road to the next spot to get to the county fair so they can make money
yeah.
because, when somebody buys a ride in the United States, you have to make payments. They're called seasonal payments, from my understanding. And I've never bought a ride, so this is what I hear. But let's say you have to pay off a $1 million ride and you have to pay it off in 10 years and you work 6 months out of the year, figure out what your payment is per month on a ride.
Oh yeah.
40, 40, $50,000 a month. Whew.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of money. And the thing is, the fairs over here start in February. The big fair normally that starts the season is you get the Valentine's fairs, and they're normally around February the 14th. And
Of course.
from there they just carry on through the year right through to Winter Wonderland, which is Christmas, December. So realistically, they only really stop through January.
Right. That's amazing.
But the thing is, that's what they have to do to make a living because the costs. I think that another big difference over here is, I think fairs are, if I remember rightly, and I'm sure you'll correct me, fairs are invited to the state fair. Are they not, the Ohio State Fair? Because the Ohio State Fair isn't it partially funded by the state?
Yeah, because it's a state celebration. The
Yeah.
way something works is every January, especially in the state of Ohio, they have what's called the Fair Managers Meeting.
Mm,
Um, and most of the county fairs and the state fair, the ride companies that come in, they'll do a contract.
yeah.
So, like the company that did the state fair, Amusements of America, they had it for like 15 years. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, after the tragic accident, um, the state fair board says, "Yeah, we don't want to do business with you anymore."
Mm,
And then they put the contract up for bid. So all these companies from around the country or locally can bid on the contract to play that fair for so many years at either, I don't know the details. I don't know if they get a percentage of the money the ride companies do, or I don't know how that works. And
yeah.
that's way too much. But for instance, the company that used to do it was from New Jersey. They have a new company called Tally's Amusements. I think it's Tallys out of Texas.
Yeah.
Their drive to get here was like 1,400 miles.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, logging almost 100 rides to play a fair for 10 days to turn around and go right back to Texas.
That's absolutely craziness, isn't it?
Yeah.
You see, the thing over here for the Goose Fair and that, because the Goose
Excuse
Fair is made up of individual ride owners, um, they have to pay the Goose Fair to go there. They have to buy the pitch to put their ride up. So, I think you'll find the big one of the big difference with the UK fairs is for a fair ride owner, they are constantly having to pay out, whether it be for the diesel, whether it be to buy the ride where they're going to put the ride up, whether it's going to hire a plot of land to put the ride up. They are constantly having to pay out,
Yeah, they
and
call that they call that privilege, like where you set your ride
yeah,
up or whatever. It's called a privilege, and you pay that fee.
so they don't really have that big amount of money to carry over for any space of time, and I think
No,
that's the problem they're having now because they kind of their income is their outcome, if you know what I mean, and
yeah,
their income has been killed at the moment. And
and
like
they're
I
still
say,
having to pay, maybe for a maintenance on a ride that's now sitting,
well, funnily
or they,
enough, I was going to say what you can see on YouTube and that and across Facebook is how the spirit of the showman, because a lot of their people are still working, and I'm assuming they're working pretty much for free, improving the rides, repainting rides, doing maintenance on rides, and everything. And that's
well,
just because of the love of the rides.
now I don't know what it's like in England with your showman. I do know that there are people that do work year round for the showman here, and they're employed. And now, here's one of the neat things that I've noticed in it. I don't know, like I said, I know the showman, but I don't know a lot of what they do besides operating the rides. Um, we have a lot of over here where you can collect a paycheck.
Yeah,
You can opt to have your paycheck taxes taken out. And a lot of people will either, because they do work a 6 month or 7 month clip, they can choose to work winter quarters where they rebuild the rides and still stay in the payroll of the showman.
yeah.
Um, People that work in the food or games, if they're not traveling from Ohio down to warmer climates to play fairs all year, like Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, they can collect unemployment because they paid government taxes. Now that's
Uh,
something neat.
well, over here, I know for a fact, normally what you get is you have people who work for the families that own the fairs. And
Okay.
and I've spoken to showmen that have worked for families for 20 and 30 years solidly.
Okay.
And that's running the rides, constructing the rides when they're in the shop. helping the maintenance on the rides and everything.
Yep.
So they kind of stay with the family year after year after year, and they almost become part of the family.
Yeah,
And
they're called foremen, and
yeah,
they're basically in charge of the electronics. Something goes wrong, whatever. So yeah,
well, I think a lot of the showmen over here they look after everything. Um, they're kind of they're not always on the same ride. They can be put on different rides. They kind of work for the family owners,
yep,
but they
and
they
that's the way
keep
it is here.
but they kind of keep them with the family, which is really cool. I mean, we spoke to one of the showmen at the fair we went to at Swindon, and he was just coming up to his 20th year, and he was brilliant actually. The amount of things he could tell you about the fairs, like I mean, he was great for us because we'd point at something and he'd give us like literally a history lesson on it. He was fantastic.
Sure.
Um,
Now,
but
the
there,
one thing you do get here, though, is most of the time the people who own the rides, they may own like a food trailer or two, but everything is kind of split up. You have a lot of people that strictly own rides.
mm,
Then you may have a family that owns 15 or 20 food trailers. And then you may have another family that owns 15 or up to maybe 30 or 40 game trailers. It's really
yeah,
weird how it's split up that way.
that's very similar to here. You have the ride owners, and normally the ride owners own the rides. You'll get somebody like, say, I don't know, James Danta. He'll turn up at a fair with two or three rides, so he'll have two or three rides there. A lot of the concession stores, the food stores, are privately
Okay.
owned by the people, so that each individual food stall is normally owned by those people. You do get some that will turn up with three or four, for want of a description, branded concession stalls.
Sure, like French fries or
Yeah, or they'll do one thing specific, whereas most of the hot dog stores and burger bars, they're kind of owned by the people who are running them.
okay,
And it's similar with the arcade. Normally, the arcade people are owned privately, and they just turn up on site as well. So it is very similar that it's split up into the three. The only
right,
difference is you don't have anybody owning a large group of the concession stores.
okay.
So that
And see, like the shows here, and I'm sure like they are in England, they always it's always the same group of people. So like the same people that have the food and the games, or all those individual people always run with the same carnival. We call them carnivals here, or
no,
some,
over here, normally the concession stores are the people who work in that area, and when the fair moves to that area, those concession stores move in with the fair. And then when the
okay,
fair moves to the next town, it's the concession stores that work in that town then move in. So you get different food stores every time the fair goes to a different area
okay,
because these food stores do all sorts in those areas. You know, if there's soccer matches
yeah, yeah.
on the weekend, they'll do that or they'll do something else. So they kind of work the areas with not
And now, see,
necessarily
you
with
don't have that here. That's another difference. That it's pretty neat. Now you do get it at the state fair
yeah.
because there's so many different vendors, as we call them, in at the state fair. You may have 100 different food trailers owned by 80 different owners.
Yeah, that's what you'll get at the Goose Fair and the Hull Fair here as well. All these individual owners from the different cities will all converge on that one fair, and you can have like a half-mile strip with concession stores either side of it, and you can
Right.
walk up it, and pretty much any kind of food you can want within reason is going to be there.
Oh yeah.
And so that
I think the favorite one I've seen is Cox on a Stick.
Cocks on a Stick, Nottingham Goose Fair. Yeah,
Oh
that's
God, I saw that and I started laughing so hard.
that old man has been there for years. I do believe he was there was talk he'd retired this year, but yeah, that's basically a lollipop in the shape of a cockerel.
That
And
I never laughed so hard in my life.
yeah, it's a lollipop stick in the shape of a cockerel, but his stall is cocks on a stick. I suppose back when he started, that was quite an innocent comment.
Yeah. Of course, now we look at it something different.
Now it's totally different. Now society's changed. Now you expect literally a cock on a stick.
Yeah, really.
But some of the
And
stuff
it
they
still
do
looks
there is
better than Dave's food. A cock on a stick still looks better than breakfast in a can. I'm sorry.
I'm not kidding you. I'd rather have somebody's cock on a stick than Dave's breakfast.
I hope he's listening this long just to
Oh,
hear.
he will be. Don't worry.
But see, here, the state fair is where they bring out the weird foods.
Yeah,
Like
same
there's
here.
always something new. Like for instance, we had one year they did we have a donut maker here called Krispy Kreme donuts, and it's a very
Oh,
sweet,
Krispy Kremes. We have them
you
here.
know,
Yeah.
okay. So what they did was is they created cheeseburgers made out of Krispy Kreme donuts.
Yeah, they've done that here. Um,
And it's not that great, but it's what's new at the fair. Let's try it.
they had that here. The only difference was it was a chicken burger. So you had like a chicken breast between a sliced ring donut.
Right. Now this one they don't slice the donut. They leave the donut whole. So you
Wow.
actually put the donut on the grill to fry it,
Oh,
and then you
Jesus.
put a hamburger patty between two giant donuts. Ugh, it
Do you
was
know, as
horrible.
disgusting as that sounds, I'd have it.
Just to try it.
just just to say I've tried it.
Yeah.
But they do all sorts of weird stuff. They do regional food. Like, I mean, at the Goose Fair, one of the traditional foods at the Goose Fair is a cup full of mushy peas. Uh,
Okay.
and on top of that, they put mint sauce, and that's it.
Ugh. No thanks.
Another one is they do what's called a Yorkshire pudding, but they use it as a wrap. So it's a Yorkshire
Ugh.
pudding with effectively a Sunday dinner in it, and they just wrap it up into a tube.
Is it good?
I've never had it. It doesn't look good. It looks like a dirty protest, to be honest. So
Now, there's a guy in the States, and I've never met him, and he's over on the West Coast. And if you want to look him up, you can do it on YouTube. But his name is Chicken Charlie. And Chicken Charlie is so famous for inventing so many different things that you can serve at a fair. He's done deep fried butter before.
Jesus.
Now we know how fast butter melts. How do you think it
Yeah.
is to try to make deep fried butter?
Well, funny enough, if that those kind of foods, if you want those kind of foods, you head towards Scotland because you can get things like deep fried Mars bars, um,
Yep. Oh, yeah, those are all over the States big time.
deep fried pizzas, and
Yep.
They do something in Scotland which is called a munchie box,
Okay.
and it's a pizza, and they cover that with Chinese food, chips, kebab meat, uh,
Ugh.
everything you can think of, and it's just piled up on top, and then they shut it, and that's it.
That still sounds better than Dave's breakfast in a can.
Well, funnily enough, Alex lived briefly in Scotland for a couple of months, and he used to swear by munchie boxes. So, but with
That that
the food with the fairs here is very regional. Like, I mean, if you go to the fairs up north, you'll get things like chips with gravy on them,
okay. Which now that's a Canadian thing. That
poutine. Is it
Yeah,
poutine?
poutine.
Yeah,
Poutine. It's
yeah.
French fries or chips with cheese curds and gravy.
See, they do it up north without the cheese curds. They have been known to
So
do it
good.
with mushy peas and bait and gravy over it.
So
Whereas if
good.
you wouldn't get that down south. Down south, you'd probably get curry sauce. Um, it kind of varies, but the food at the fairs is like, I mean, I love the food at fairs. I gotta say,
So fattening, but so good.
it is. There's nothing better than the smell of fried onions on a hot dog stall.
Yep.
I could stand there all day.
The big
But
thing I think everybody likes here is funnel cakes and fresh cut French fries, or as you say, chips with a ton of
yeah,
vinegar on it.
yeah, my son Ethan would love that. He can drink vinegar for fun. We don't get the
Oh,
funnel cakes. In fact, funnily enough, one thing we don't get at the fairs here very much are stores that sell sweet stuff. You may get the occasional store that sells sweets, but we don't get stuff that sells things like you just said, like the funnel cake or anything like that, or cakes or anything like that.
But you have candy floss, which is cotton candy here.
We do, but they're normally sold on the hot dog stalls.
Yeah, see, we have trailers that sell all sweets,
No,
whether it
we
be cotton candy or candy apples, which are covered in caramel,
yeah, no, we don't get
or
that.
popcorn, stuff like that.
We don't have that. You could probably get the cotton candy, and if you're lucky, you might get a like a lollipop. Obviously, you can get your cock on a stick, but but no, we don't have those. Mainly it's the hot dog stores, and they'll have where you get served. They'll have hanging at the sides candy floss if you want a bag of candy floss. But we don't have the actual, like they do in America, where you have the guy with a stick and he'll actually do it
Oh
for you
yeah,
in front of you, kind of thing. We don't have
I
that
tried to.
anymore.
I tried to do that one time, like take the stick and do it around to put it on a stick. I
Yeah.
think I looked like, yeah, I was covered in it. It's hard to do.
It is a skill. It really is. But
But
like I
see,
say,
that just going back to that's the difference. People ask, what's the difference between American fairs and British fairs?
mm,
And I
well, it's
think
like
we've given them
it's
so
like I
many
said,
different.
it's like we said, they're very similar, but they're also very different. You know, there's so many similarities, but then there's so many differences as well. But like I say, the Ohio State Fair when I was there, it was a fantastic experience. Like, and I highly recommend it. I mean, to anybody who's listening to this over here in England who's thinking of going to America. And when I say going to America, I don't mean tourist America. I don't mean New York or Florida or Los Angeles or any of the tourist places. If you want to see the real America, go and see the real America.
Yep.
And if you get a chance to go to a state fair, I highly recommend it because it's an experience.
And I will personally invite anybody to come to Ohio, come to Columbus, plan it because there's a lot of good county fairs, either just before the state fair or just after. And I will put anybody up. You can come stay with me so you don't have to pay the expenses. And, I can take off work. I'm semi retired. We'll take you guys and do whatever you want.
Plus, that's a bonus because they've got Waffle House not far from where he lives.
Uh, you got to tell them what Waffle House is.
Waffle House, okay. Waffle House
So
is,
the Americans listening will know Waffle House if you're from like
yeah.
Ohio, the South. But
Waffle House are a chain of, they're like little American breakfast diners, and I don't think Waffle House branched much further out of Ohio. The majority of them I've ever been to have been Ohio, but
well, they're all over the Midwest, which is like Ohio and West Virginia and Tennessee and Kentucky. I think they started in Atlanta, Georgia,
have
just
they got
south
that
of
far?
Oh, well, yeah, they started there and came up.
Wow.
Um,
But
but
yeah,
I never. Go ahead.
they're a breakfast chain of restaurants, and they do mainly breakfasts with a few other things thrown in. But I used to spend every morning in a Waffle House, and I would have hash browns with jalapenos in it, a full plate of hash browns. And when I say a full plate, it's a
Oh,
full
it's
plate.
full.
Yeah. You'd have that. You'd have a side order of raisin toast, which speaks for itself, but it's gorgeous because they put the American butter on it, and I can't remember the name of the butter. I can remember that it was in a squeezy bottle and the bottle was brown.
Yep, probably their own brand, so you didn't know what it
Yeah.
was exactly.
And refillable black coffee. And I swear, people, if you get a chance to go to Waffle House, it is the best food you will find. It's all freshly cooked and it's brilliant and it's cheap. It was so cheap.
You can go there and get like a giant cheese omelet, which I love because they're so fluffy,
Yeah.
hash browns, and I like milk, and you'd
Yeah.
pay $5.
Literally. And the food, if they charged you $20 for it, you'd be happy to pay it because it's that good and you get so much. And the
And
people
they're
there,
open 24/7. They're open
yeah,
all the time.
yeah, and the people there serving you are normally so funny. They're so friendly. I swear, I can't recommend Waffle House. If somebody ever said to me, "What's the best place to eat in America?" I would always say Waffle House.
No, I wouldn't go that far, but if you
Oh, I
want
would.
breakfast foods, sure,
The only place I can think better was Golden Corral, but
that's for another chat.
that's for my food vlogs. I'll get Dave on that one. Jesus,
Anything to teach them how to cook.
I don't
So
think
what
it's
other
possible.
what other questions do we have from anybody? I think Connor submitted some. I know Dave submitted some.
Connor had some. One of Connor's question was, "What do you do for a living?"
I am.
Here we go.
He's gonna laugh. All right, I retired out of the funeral industry. I was and am licensed in the state of Ohio as a funeral director or an embalmer, which I did retire out of it 4 years ago when my father passed away. Um, my parents, before I came to Columbus to go to college, they owned a chain of drugstores in Cleveland, and they sold that, and they retired young. They sorry about the bird in the background; she's going
No,
crazy.
it's okay.
Um, they but when I started going to school at Ohio State, my parents decided to move to Columbus, and they opened a moving and storage company while I was still in the funeral industry. And they got pretty successful. We have offices in Columbus, Dayton, and Cincinnati. But when my dad died, I retired and I ended up taking over his half of the moving and storage business. But
So,
now I'm almost out of retirement here just for a short time because of all the virus stuff going
yeah.
on. But I don't want to bore the people. They don't need to know about death and dying. They want carnival and ride stuff. So there you go,
Well,
Connor. That's
th-
what I did for a living.
there's your answer, Connor. But while we're on the subject of death and dying, um, I just want to briefly touch on the Ohio State accident.
Sure,
And
that's
I
a
know,
great segue.
do you like that? Yeah. Um, it wasn't the segue I wanted to use because you know now
Let's just
obviously,
get it out of the way.
yeah. Let's get it out of the way. Obviously, it was reported how it was reported, and obviously, it's been passed through word of mouth, and there's been a lot. I think there's been a lot said about it. I think a lot's been said about it out of ignorance. I think a lot has been said out of it through lack of knowledge or fake news. Now, I know that you probably know more about it than I do. So, if you can explain what happened, kind of thing, and more to the point, if you can like just tell people the positives that have come out of it,
Absolutely.
because
We're gonna briefly touch on a negative, but it's gonna be such a positive way.
yeah, I think it
Um,
has to be because yeah, any accident, it's like we said at the start, any accident is a tragedy. I can't even say it, a tragedy. Anybody gets hurt or killed is a tragedy, but good things come out of it. If that doesn't sound wrong or do you know what I mean? My
sure.
example is the Smiler accident at Alton Towers. It was a horrendous accident, but from that accident came so many new safety procedures that made it so that that kind of accident couldn't happen on a ride again, and that's the positive to take from that. So I'll
And I
leave.
and I and I wish we could teach the general public this, which you
Yeah,
just said, because they don't look at something like that. And let's just nail this on the head, and we'll go from there. And
yeah, cool.
so 3 years ago, somebody was on a ride at the Ohio State Fair. If you know what I'm talking about, I don't want to mention the ride manufacturer
No,
because we did get a cease and desist letter, and that's why I'm not
I,
part of the other ride group anymore that I originally started.
to be honest,
Because
I don't think the
anybody
ride.
can look it up.
Yeah,
They can look it up.
I don't think the ride manufacturer's important. It was just a ride. It could have been any ride.
Sure. So it ended up that the ride malfunctioned, and unfortunately, somebody tragically lost their life on the ride. And three or four people were injured pretty bad. But to leave that now, because that's really all that should be said about it was is
Yeah,
in the states, the state of Ohio has always had the strictest guidelines to the way that a fair or games or food trailers operate in the state of Ohio. They've always had the strictest rules and guidelines.
And
Um,
that's
this
very
just
true.
made it, yeah, they have. They're,
Mm.
you know,
Well,
I know that.
my
Go ahead.
father-in-law works for a company and they do maintenance on buildings and that, and I know how many regulations and checks that he had to go through with their buildings on a daily basis
Yeah,
with the state of Ohio. So I know how stringent the state is.
yeah. And like I can always, tell somebody a carnival or a fun fair ride is going to be much more safer than an amusement park ride, in my opinion. Because uh, amusement park rides, yes, they have constant maintenance like a carnival ride, but those rides basically get one major thorough checking a year before this park opens. Except for like roller coasters and stuff, the track is walked every day. But besides that,
Mm,
whoever's going to operate that ride, whichever young seasonal positional guy, um, will walk up to the machine, turn it on, press a button, and let it go its circle.
yeah,
When a carnival ride goes up every single time in the state of Ohio, before that ride can operate, it's inspected by, I think it's one of 10 ride inspectors in the state of Ohio. And it has to be certified to be run or it won't operate.
yeah,
But the key to all this is that I'd say 99% of the time, the same guy operates the same ride every single time it's put up or taken down.
yeah,
So that guy knows the way the ride should sound as it's operating correctly. If something doesn't sound right, they close it down for maintenance. So don't judge that book by a cover when you look at the guy operating the ride,
absolutely.
because you definitely got to be a lot smarter than you think just to hit a button.
But I think that's a very good point you just made. I think a lot of, for want of a better description, the general public see the rider ops and think they're just anybody that they've just put in a cab and all they've got to do is press a button. I don't think they realize how skilled and knowledgeable and the expertise it takes these people to know. They know these rides by every bolt, you know.
Absolutely. There's a thing on YouTube. I came across a channel called Funfair Worldwide. I don't know if you've heard of them,
I have,
um,
yes.
but they do a lot of like in operation rides where they film the ride operators operating a ride.
Yeah,
And when you see them operating a ride, they're so focused not on only performing the job of pressing the buttons, turning on the lights, talking on a microphone, but they're always watching the ride. They're listening. You can really see that. And
yeah.
people don't get that.
No, I think they just sit in the cab, press a button, and go back to the phone or something.
Yeah. Oh no. And see, in the state of Ohio, you cannot do that.
No,
No, you're not allowed to pick up a cell phone, text message, be on the phone when somebody's operating a ride.
no.
You're done if you do.
And you see, this is the kind of lack of knowledge and ignorance that, to a degree, caused all the hysteria about the accident at the fair.
Yeah. They took it out on the ride operator, and it
Which
clearly wasn't his fault.
no, not at all. You know, that's why I say it could have been any ride. And the thing is, you know, these rides don't have an emergency stop button. You know, as in they can't stop if something happens, they cannot stop a ride to a dead halt. A lot
No,
of these are
it's
momentum.
virtually impossible.
Yeah, they're momentum driven rides. A lot of these. So to a degree, if something happens, it's out of anybody's hands. And any it's like any accident. Any accident is a freak accident. No, there's no accident that's intentional. So but like you say, the good thing that came out of this accident was the fact that the rides that came after would have been that much more safer.
Oh, and they were. But everybody jumped to conclusions as soon as that accident happened, and we discussed this before,
Yeah.
that once that accident happened, first of all, the show owners who had them, in a lot of states, that ride was outlawed from operating until there was some kind of conclusion to that ride.
Mm.
Meaning anything that resembled the ride, whether it be the manufacturer, different manufacturer, whatever it was, that style of ride was not allowed to operate.
Yeah.
And
It's
remember, these guys are paying money for these rides, millions of dollars, and you
mm,
can't operate a ride like that. That's bad.
it's a knee-jerk reaction, isn't it?
But like you said, in the long run, all these other states now that had somewhat it's an English term, lackadaisy, meaning lazy rules to things, really tighten their belt.
Exactly. Like I say, positives. It's so easy when something like this happens to focus on the accident and the negatives of it. That's the real easy thing to do. The other
Right,
really easy thing to do is to blame the manufacturer, blame the fare, blame the rider. That's real easy to do, and 99.9% of the right time, that's the wrong thing to do because it's none of those people's fault.
right.
The best thing,
And see, like in Ohio, we have the Ohio Showmen's Association or the Ohio Fair Board Association, um, and everybody that is on that board of directors is either some form of concessionaire with food,
yeah,
they're a game owner, or they're a carnival owner,
mm,
um, and that's the way it should be. And
yeah,
there's really good people that are on it. I know the president, David Drake, amazing concessionaire. A guy named Bill Sterling. Not only is he a show owner, he owns some games. He owns more kiddie rides and plays locally around Columbus. But Bill's a great guy.
yeah,
But these are guys that they just had a big conference over winter time, that show owners and stuff could go to. It's a safety conference to get certified,
yeah,
even more
exactly.
than what they were. And they didn't have that before, but now they do.
Which is
And
another great positive to come out of it. You know, unfortunately, you're always going to get a small section of people that are going to take something like that happening and take that opportunity to make, how can I put this, to make false accusations, false comments, wrongful comments, and in some cases, just the opportunity to point the finger. Um, and that's pointless because the only way you can, I don't know what the word I should use is, the only way you can honor the people that lost their lives or got hurt is by making sure that it never happens again. And
right.
it's quite clear that, like you just said, with that committee, with the Ohio State Fair, they have done everything to make sure that it will never happen again. And I think they should be commended for that. I
Oh,
really
and they
do.
have been.
And I think, you know, what was a incredibly, I should imagine, an incredibly difficult situation for them. They came out of it with a lot of positives, and I take my hat off to them for that. But not only for themselves, but by the sounds of it, for the whole United States, where other states have improved their safety records because of what happened, and
You
that's
know,
such a big positive.
I think the one time that I ever, like I said, I never even touched base on how I started with fairs or anything, but one of the only times I ever helped somebody working on a ride was the summer that that accident happened.
Yeah,
And I was actually working a fair, a different county fair, just a little bit west of Columbus when that happened. And I heard a lady get really negative, and she goes, I would never trust my kid on that ride, and blah, blah, blah. And I kind of looked at her because, first of all, we got sick of hearing about how dangerous the rides were and stuff. And I
Yeah,
said to this lady, I said, "Do you see that ride right there?" And I pointed across the midway a little bit. And she goes, "Yeah, what about it?" I go, "Do you think a man that would spend $750,000 on a ride that supports his family, do you think he would let that ride go to such junk that he could lose everything in the world and not exist to
yeah.
make sure, you know?" And she got like really huffy puffy about it, and then she thought about it and came back like a half hour later once it sunk in, and she goes, "I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to offend you." And I said, "You're not offending me, but you would offend the show owner if they heard that."
Well, yeah, but it just shows you that when you stop them, when you kick them out of this mindset of, oh, it must be their fault, their fault, their fault, and actually stop them for a second and make them think, it doesn't take long for them to realize, look, they wouldn't let that happen. And
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 I
of course,
said,
and of course,
and what? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna say the biggest irony of it is even that ride that had the accident, that ride was probably in better condition than 90% of the cars that were on the road
Oh
that
yeah.
the people drove to that state fair in on that day. Yet not a problem with that, you know.
Well, when I was talking to this lady, I said, "Do you have like a swing set in your backyard, or we call them like a jungle gym play set or whatever?" And
Yeah,
she goes, "Yeah." And I said, "Now, during the wintertime, your kids aren't on it. Nobody looks at it." She goes, "You're right." And I said, "Does your husband go out and check the nuts and bolts on that thing in the springtime before the kids get on it?" "Well, sure he does. He wants to make sure they're all tight and they don't get hurt." And I said, "That's what these show owners do week after week after week after week. They'll disassemble that playground set, then they rebuild it in another city, and it's checked by the state and by the show owner."
yeah. At the end of the day, I always look at it like this. They're mechanical machines. Mechanical machines, unfortunately, do sometimes break down and do have accidents.
But so
That
does your car.
so does your car, so does your washing machine, so do you as a person when you're ill. It's just part of life, but you know, and the other thing is from working in the industry that did tensile testing and that, you know, if it was a bolt that sheared, that bolt would only have to be put under a different type of stress for a millisecond for it to give way. And that's
Yeah,
that's that's the finite line that they run on, unfortunately. If there's a stress fracture or something there, that can run for years and years without a problem, without anybody knowing it was even there.
yeah, the physics behind a ride, people, and it's amazing. And, here's where they get judged again. People
Yeah.
will look at a guy that works the rides and say, "Oh, he's dirty and slimy." And I'd say, "You know what? This person knows the physics behind this ride. They know the pressure on the arms. They know how to level a ride. It's more than rocket science sometimes."
Oh, absolutely. They do a job that your average man on the street couldn't do. Yet your
No,
average, yet your average man on the street is quick enough to call them dirty, grimy idiots.
right.
And you may tell by how annoyed I get because it really annoys me. And I don't want to criticize everybody. I don't want to criticize the general public, but there's elements of the general public that are just ignorant fools, and they just sit there waiting for something to happen so that they can jump on these people.
Kind of like an internet troll.
Very much like an internet troll. Like, I mean, I'm sure that whatever happened in your group last time probably was caused by internet trolls making stupid, mindless comments that had no basis and had
Right.
no facts behind them, but they're just keyboard warriors, and it
Yep.
it fr- you know,
And that's what happened, and then next thing you know, I mean, if I got 15,000 members from around the world, I had
yeah,
show owners, I had freak show owners, I had game concessionaire owners, I had food owners. All you need is that one person to report back to
yeah,
somebody, and I could be held responsible for what was said in that room.
Well,
And I didn't
exactly.
and I didn't want that anymore. And the guy that I started the room with says, you know what? If you don't like it anymore, screw you. I said, you know what? You could take those 15,000 people and stick it up your arse because I don't want to deal with it anymore.
Well, absolutely right. Because, like I say, those people who write the negative comments about specifically that incident or any incident, to them it's a throwaway comment. But on the other end of that, you could be costing somebody their livelihood.
Right.
You could be costing somebody their heritage. You could be giving somebody a black mark against their name for the rest of their career.
And you don't want that.
And you don't want that because nobody, whether it be state commissioners, state fair organisations, ride owners, ride ups, nobody wants their ride to have an accident. Nobody. All
And
they want you.
I wasn't protecting anybody. I just put a disclaimer in the room that if you decide to go ahead and talk negative about the ride experience that happened at the fair or the
Mhm.
accident, you will be kicked out of the room.
Well,
And I think what
well,
happened was if somebody got pissed off, I kicked
yeah.
them out of the room. Then they either called somebody, did something, and I just didn't want to be a part of it.
No, you
Drama,
don't. Drama breeds drama, unfortunately. And
and
one,
you know, and I hate to toot my own horn, but if you look at my page now, I think we're close to 100 members. I just started this last year at the Ohio State Fair.
yeah.
Um, I don't let negative people or negativity into the room.
Well, there's no point because it breeds negativity, and the whole point of fun fairs is to be the opposite. The whole point of
Right.
fun fairs is fun. It's not negative, it's fun. And like I say, after we spoke the other night, I took the trouble of going and looking at some of the articles about what had happened. And the amount of ignorance that was floating around, it was very frustrating. The good thing for me is that,
But you're smart enough to really research something. The public only, like the news, this accident happened the third day or the second day of a 10-day fair.
yeah,
That attendance was so off that year and the year after because everybody was scared to go there.
yeah, which is, we had the similar thing with the Smiler roller coaster over here.
Yeah, that's what you were saying, how bad it was for the amusement
Yeah,
park.
the amusement park nearly went bust because people wouldn't go on the ride, and it was like, well, why wouldn't you go on that ride? That's probably the safest ride in the country now. The amount of
But
changes that
but you
were
can't
made to
tell the
it.
public that.
Oh, they don't want to know because all they want to know is that there was an accident on that ride. Therefore, that ride has got a black mark against it for good. And that's
And
just ignorant. And it's just ignorance, I'm afraid.
if I can get political for a moment, now I guess I'll say this being a smartass, as our
Go on then.
wonderful president leader of the United States would say, that's fake news.
Well, it's the
Which,
one time he's actually right.
right,
Because it is. It's the one time he's actually right, and it's the one time it should be used. And,
right.
you know,
But when you have every television station, basically in the state of Ohio,
yeah,
there every single day, set up in front of the ride, showing because there was film of the ride accident happening, which was
yeah,
I'm sorry, I saw the whole film, and let me tell you,
yeah,
it
I don't know why they'd show that.
they
But
didn't show the whole thing, but I don't know if I could say I was fortunate enough because being in the industry that I was in, I
yeah,
did see the film of the accident. Let me tell you what, these people that want to cast judgment, if you saw the whole film, you would never cast the judgment that they did.
no. But that, like
Be-
you say, that goes back to people willing to open their mouths before having the facts. And like you can say, the only good thing to come from it is all the positives that have come from it. And I genuinely feel that that's the important thing because it's tragic that somebody lost their life,
Right.
but positives have to come out of it for them. You know what I mean? So thank
Absolutely.
and that's I'm really
So
big on that kind of thing. I don't see the point of being. you know, the accident happened. It was horrific. It was tragic. But you can't focus on that. You have to focus on what happened after. And what happened after was totally positive, not only for the state fair, but for the ride and for everything. And that's
Yep.
what people should focus on.
So let's switch it up. Who else had a question? Was there anything else from Connor, from Dave, Cy, yourself? Maybe there's
I,
something you don't
there,
want to know
there,
because
there's a question from my son Ethan. He
how's it
wants to
going, Ethan?
he wants to know, of all the rides you know from the UK, which ride would you most look forward to getting on?
I would have to say it was that drop tower with Dave.
Hangover.
Hangover.
Yeah, Hangover is a
Definitely.
bit special. Um,
It's one of those things that, we only see at amusement parks. Now, we do have drop towers, but there may be only, I don't know if you can do the conversion. They may be 80 feet high here in the States.
80 foot. That's, yeah, Hangover's slightly higher than that.
Yeah,
Hangover is
but
a bit, but Hangover is the entire package. It's not just the ride, it's Johnny the ride up as well.
right.
He makes that ride special. The way he is on the mic, the way he works it and everything. He really does make that ride special. And
Um, but over there, that would be my favorite ride, would be the Hangover.
what
My
about in America?
my two favorite rides, if well, obviously, if I was at an amusement park, it'd definitely be a roller coaster. Um, but both of the rides that I like, there's very few of them around anymore. One is the Chance Toboggan ride, which if you go to my Facebook site, there's a video of it, not an on ride, but two beautiful off ride videos of it in operation.
Yep,
Um, we're a company out of Michigan called Skirback. I think it's Skirback Entertainment. They
yep,
went ahead and they rebuilt one of those, and it just looked absolutely amazing. And that's a ride that was built like around the late 60s, mid to late 60s, that those were
yeah,
built. And then very few of them exist anymore. I think there's three in the States, two are portable, and one is a park model at an amusement
it,
park
it
somewhere.
looks it looks crazy. It looks like the lateral G's you get on it would be absolutely
Oh,
amazing.
and did you see when Dave and Cy rode it? They
Yeah,
were like bunched up like sardines, and Cy was like, "Ooh, ow, ooh, ow, ow, ow!"
yeah.
Every time
The
that thing made a corner.
the lateral G's on it would be off the scale.
But I think my all-around favorite ride, and we talked about this the other day, and you looked it up, would be the Bear on Curve,
Yeah,
the Husk
that as
Bear on
well.
Curve.
That would
And,
be crazy as well.
and see, that's a ride that I can remember many years ago. Probably I was in my teens to
Yeah,
maybe my earliest of the 20s that I would still see that ride at a state fair. Because once again, it's the amount of time that that ride takes to set up.
yeah. See,
Um,
I'm not sure that we have those in the UK.
You probably don't. I know Germany, I think there is still one portable model,
Yeah, I'm pretty
just for the fact that it's a Huss. There's one here in the United States at Kennywood Park in Pennsylvania.
Oh, Kennywood. Yeah, Kennywood is a really good park for that. They've also got a slip ride. They've got, of all the theme parks in America, they have probably some of the most traditional rides going.
Yeah. Where you
Um,
and then I think there's one still out on the road somewhere. I think it's West Coast,
yeah,
and it travels the West Coast up into Canada for the Calgary Stampede, which is a massively huge fair. It's awesome.
yeah,
Um,
I,
but
I've heard
once
of that.
again, that's like a 8 or 9 trailer setup where the back part of the ride where the curve is, that's the main structure support for the ride with your back flash.
Yeah,
But everything else, the doghouse, which we call an operating area, the doghouse, the track, um, what's really neat about that Bayron curve is there's a giant holding pool in the middle of the ride with water, and
yeah,
that
that
is
whole. Is that to weigh it down?
Yeah, that's a stability weight.
Yeah,
And that's really neat. But your showman, once that ride was becoming more obsolete, didn't put up all the really cool scenery that would go with the Bear Run curve, like the little Eskimos in the towers going up and down. And it, you got to find a video of it on YouTube with the full functioning lights and everything because it's
yeah.
just awesome.
Like I say, it looks an insane ride because once
Yeah,
once again, it's got such almost bank turns, and it looks like it's so fast. It really does look like it'd be an
it
awesome
goes
ride.
about 55 miles an hour.
But I think the banking on it and the curves on it would, and especially with the
It,
humped back area, I think it
it,
would increase the speed.
it does, and you get some airtime out of it.
Yeah, it really does look good. So
But if we say,
I'm just looking at the pictures of it now. So
yeah, but you got to watch the video because it's a Huss. And
yeah,
anybody that knows a Huss, when those motors start going,
the hu-
you know,
the
that
husk
loud
grind.
generating sound. Yeah, the Huss grind. And
Yeah,
then once you reach your maximum speed, they got these truck engines like air horns that turn on. It the ride will hook you forever.
and that's what I mean. It's a shame that the UK doesn't see
It's
those
like a
kind of
funky
rides.
version of a Matterhorn,
Yeah, it is very similar to a. It's like a tracked Matterhorn. I think that's the best way I can describe it. A tracked
except it's
Matterhorn.
more curved than flat. Like you're
But
not sitting flat, you're sitting kind of like in a toboggan.
it's kind of a shame that we don't get those rides over here. Um, but perhaps they'll come over. Who knows? Like I mean, so I know a lot of the new rides now come. I mean, Zamperla have got a new ride coming out now. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. It's double arms going at every angle. Um, the
Which one
problem
is that?
they just showed it off at IAPA.
Yeah, is that the one, the big yellow ride where the arms go out and then it flips?
No, it's a red, white, and blue ride, and it's got multiple arms kind of interlaced with each other.
Oh yeah, yeah, I
Uh,
saw that. The one that goes around and around.
that's the
Like
one, and it looks so
yeah, yeah.
weird. But I'm guessing now the big problem is going to be over the next, and I should imagine it's going to take a couple of years now that we won't be seeing many new rides because
The
there's
economy now.
well, it's the economy, and they're just not going to have the money after losing all the income that they're about to lose and are losing at the moment.
Right.
So it will be interesting to see what kind of fares come out when everything opens back up. I think you'll see a lot of rides that you knew before that have been updated because I should imagine they're doing a fair bit of updating on the rides now.
Right.
It will be interesting. I'm hoping, and this sounds incredibly strange, but I'm hoping that when the fares come out, they put their prices up.
They should.
You know, and
But
I hope,
one of the biggest things showmen say here is we all swear a little bit in our lives, and
yeah,
the biggest four-letter word to a showman is rain. RAI.
and- yeah,
Because you can't get them. But over in England, they do operate in the rain, and
yeah.
people still show up. And that's another thing I noticed. I couldn't believe it.
Oh yeah, we've videoed fares in torrential rain. It's kind of crazy actually because you can imagine trying to keep a lens clean in the rain on a fairground ride.
But in the States, nope. They they the people will go away, but the fair still stays open because the showmen don't want to lose the money. They want
That's
people to know we're still open.
well, there's kind of an atmosphere. I suppose it's because over here in the UK we're used to getting wet. Um,
Yeah, that's a
I
big part of
genuinely
it.
I think it is a big part of it. I think we're used to being in bad weather, and I think we're used to doing things in poor weather. So a bit of rain at a fun fair is not a big deal, you know.
Once
So
they say rain here, they always say when you lose a dollar, you'll never gain that dollar back.
well, yeah, over here they don't worry about it. But I think one of the things that will change over here is what they do. A lot of the fairs they have like happy hour and discount day where You can go there and all the rides are like a pound or a dollar.
Okay.
I think those
Dude,
will,
oh,
or two tokens, yeah, two tokens. But no, I think those will go at first because I don't think the fairs can afford to do those at the moment. I hope they go. But then again, knowing the showman, all they'll want to do is give people a good time when they reopen. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if they carry on doing that.
sure.
And once again, that's another mark for them against the people who say they're not good people. These people will take a loss financially to give you a good time,
Absolutely. That's what it's about.
and that's the mentality of the showman.
It's amazing. I've seen, a ride break down, and in within 24 hours, they've spent $5,000 on a certain part just to make sure that that ride is working as fast as they can.
Well, exactly. I think this is why people who really love fun fairs like yourself, Dave, like me, like every fun fair, like think this is what draws us to them because I just think there's something about them. I think there's something about fairs that draws you to them naturally because you feel like they genuinely care about your time there. I think I personally, and I can only speak from a vlogging point of view, I feel more myself and more comfortable vlogging a fun fair because those people appreciate you being there.
Sure.
Whereas at theme parks, you always kind of feel like they'd rather you not be there because you're more of a hindrance. You know what I mean?
Well, but
So
that's the way they make there's the difference between the guy that rides or the guy that operates the ride every single day of his life, let's say, or the show owner
yeah,
who puts his life on the line, his family's reputation, his family's income, um, to make everything so well or so
yeah.
good that it makes you want to come back.
Oh,
The,
absolutely. Like I mean, over here, the smaller theme parks like Oakwood and uh, Pleas- Pleasurewood Hills, Lightwater Valley, Portons Park, they really embrace vloggers because they know that they're going to get free publicity out of it, and they know people are going to show off what they're selling, and that's a similar mentality as the showman. Whereas you get the big parks like Alton Towers, they don't care
no, they know you're
because
going to show up. They don't care.
yeah, they don't care. They know whether you put a vlog on giving them a good write up or not. So many million people are going to buy their passes and turn up anyway. So you're
Right,
pretty much insignificant where they're concerned.
right.
And you definitely feel that in the park.
I think it is because, the people, and I tell somebody, I go, you really want to know what people think about you that work at amusement parks? Go to YouTube and type in Cedar Point employees and see how their negative reactions are, or oh, Disney employee, or any
Yeah.
amusement park. I just use those as examples. And see how negative the employees talk about the experience with the customer.
You see, now I know for a fact that Alton Towers have fired people because they've seen their employees criticizing them on YouTube or online. And because they've criticized Merlin, they've actually sacked them.
But see, what people don't understand is these are kids, and it's nothing against kids nowadays. They don't have the work ethic like somebody our age does.
Well, no,
And they
because
think,
everything's given to them.
right. And I think what people don't understand is that the normal average everyday person here in the United States works 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. You take
Yeah.
an amusement person, they're working 7 days a week, 12 to 14 hours a day. You're going to have a bad day.
Well, the big problem in the UK is a lot of the kids that are working in the fun fairs, they're employed on what are called 0 hour contracts. They've got little to no employment rights. Um, they can be laid off the drop of a hat. They can be told they're not working for 2, 3 weeks with no money.
Now, is that at amusement parks or fun fairs?
That's at amusement parks, amongst
Okay,
other
yeah,
places in the UK. And it's
yeah.
like, and so you can understand there's not that bond to where they're working.
Now,
Because
see, amusement parks here, and I don't mean to interrupt you, they are under a contract that says you will work from this date to this date, and if you work this amount of time, just like the American show owners do, if you work from the first day that we're open to the last day that we close, we'll give you a big bonus at the end of the year for staying.
no, they
Well,
don't
that's,
do that in the UK.
yeah, see, that's one thing they do here.
No,
But what like Cedar Point would do is they'll say, okay, Craig, let's say you're in high school and you want to work for the summer. We have places for you to live, places for you to eat. We'll take you wherever you need to go. We have shuttles. And they make it look so glorified. And then
yeah,
these kids get there and they're working 6 days a week, 12 hours a day at minimum wage. And they're like, oh my God, holy shit. Oh, pardon my language. Well, that's all right. It's an
no, it's
adult.
okay.
It's
Yeah,
adult vlog. And next thing you know, they're wanting to quit after 2 or 3 weeks.
a lot of
You-
them are like that in the UK. They're treated very poorly
And I
because
don't, that's not
because
fair.
well, it's because they're seasonal, and the reality is places like Alton Towers and that. And I'm not just saying Alton Towers. That's just the first name that comes to mind. They know that if they get rid of 100 people, there's another 100 people waiting to fill those shoes.
Sure.
Because the attraction of working there is a big one. But
Right.
that's the trouble. They're dispensable, and because of that, they're treated like they're dispensable. Unless you're one of the lucky ones that have worked there for 3, 4, 5 years, and they get to know you, and you become one of the senior or bigger ops. The
Yeah. You're
reality
not
is
just
that
a number.
you're just a number after that,
Yeah.
and that I think that causes the difference between the theme parks and the fun fairs. I think that's why when you could go to a theme park at times, it can feel like a very sterile experience.
Absolutely.
And I've never had that in a fun fair. And like I mean, anybody listen to this, don't get me wrong, I'm not criticizing theme parks. I love theme parks. I really do. They were our first love. I'm just pointing out the difference between theme parks and fun fairs, and if you do them how we're doing them, it stands out like a sore thumb, and I'm sure you agree, Tom.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. And
So,
and and like Dave asked me one time, him and I were chatting. He's like, well, why haven't you done videos yet? And I said, I just haven't because I didn't know how. And I said,
well,
but now that I watch you and Cy and Connor and Andy and Martin and all those guys,
mm,
I know how to look at something through the lens in a different way than just taking a picture.
well, it's funny actually because up till the start of this year, we did theme parks only. We vlogged theme parks, and
And you
we've
were
now
saying that,
and
yeah.
we've started vlogging fun fairs, and there is a difference to how you have to vlog fun fairs. There really is. We vlogged the Leeds Fair the same way we vlog fun fairs, and when we watched it back, it was so sterile and lacking anything.
Kind of, yeah, like stiff. Like, ugh.
Yeah, it was regimented. It was just, and I actually went and spoke to Connor and said, "Have a look at this video. Tell me what's wrong with it." And to be fair to Connor, he was brutally honest with me, told me exactly what was wrong with it, what he thought was wrong with it, and how we could change. And from that point, we vlog fairs how we would be if the camera wasn't there, if it was just us walking around.
And that's what you have to do.
It is, and it's a learning curve. It really is. And people who don't think there's a difference between vlogging theme parks and fun fairs, there's a massive difference. There really is.
Well,
There,
like my example, and I'm gonna touch a subject, and I don't know if it's too soon or not. You look at Cy and Dave's daughter Libby. Libby,
mm,
Libby, she's a camera hog. She loves to be on the telly. She loves to interact and she wants to be on there. And like you said, Sai, you just turn the camera on him at any time and you don't know what you're going to get,
Yeah,
but it's natural. And
yeah,
then I see some videos of Connor's, which I think all of his videos are good no matter what. And unfortunately, I'm going to mention another tragic incident, but the passing, of our friend.
yeah,
Um, when you saw Connor and him interact together with Zach at a fun fair, they were both like little tiny children.
yeah, yeah.
And
Connor,
sometimes and when you see Connor by himself, he's a little more serious because a Connor, it's hard to get him to laugh. I know he can do it. He's a great guy.
um, Connor is hilarious. I love Connor. Like I mean,
But when
I've
you
been
see him and Zach together,
yeah, I've been lucky enough to vlog a few places with Connor, and he is just fun. He's such a fun guy. I can't speak highly enough about him. That's why when I was having problems with the vlogging, he was the first person I went to because I knew he'd be honest with me. But
right?
he is such a good guy, and I think he works at the vlogging. I think I think what happened recently has made him more conscious of it. But Connor's like Dave and Si. He's so natural on the camera.
Oh,
He's so much better on the camera than I am. So much better. And he's so knowledgeable as well. I can't speak highly enough of the guy. I really can't. But I definitely know what you mean.
when I was talking to Connor one time in chat, really quickly, he said I told him I thought about coming over. He's like, you could come stay with me. Come on, mate. We'll go out. We'll do some fun fairs. I'll teach you how to do things.
He is
That's what I want to learn.
he is that's Connor in a nutshell. He's a good guy. He really is. And if anybody's listening to this and you haven't been over to his channel yet, Painful Vlogs, get over to his channel and watch his vlogs. He's exceptional. He's he's funny and he doesn't know it. His sense of humor is so dry at times, but it's
Oh my
brilliant.
God, I died laughing.
It's so dry at times, and he doesn't realize how good he is. I had this conversation with him a couple of weeks ago. I don't think he realizes how good he actually is. And I'm gonna have to stop now, otherwise he'll never get his head out the door.
I know.
I'm not
We,
blowing any
we,
more smoke up his ass. That's
we've
enough.
given Connor and Slothy Vogs enough credit for where credit is due, but
To be honest, they
and
are exceptional at what they do. They
and they're
really
so
are.
humble. They're so humble.
What makes Dave, Simon, and Connor so good is they don't know that they're good.
Right.
If you speak to them off camera, they are always second guessing what they've done, whether it's good enough. And that's what makes them good. They don't
Right.
know that they're good.
Well, look when Dave goes live on YouTube, people send him money, and he's like, "What are you doing that for?"
Yeah,
We
he says
enjoy the
that.
content.
He says that, but off the camera, he's got a fucking abacus and a calculator totting it up on our day.
Oh, I'm sure he does. He's got to
It-
buy that new iron for his wife that he ruined
I,
with his
I don't know
green
about
screen.
I don't know about buying an iron. He needs to buy a fucking cookbook.
Cooking
He
lessons would be better.
needs to buy a cookbook so he can cook a tin of beans.
Oh my God, he's gonna kill us for this.
Nah, he'll live, which is less than the people who eat his food will do.
Yep.
But no,
So
they're all good guys.
I guess we probably should have. We've really put the cart in front of the horse on this one.
Yeah,
How I got started.
yeah,
Um, Started attending county fairs where I grew up. And as
yeah.
I grew up and got older, a friend of our family's that was on the fair board at the local county fair when I was about 12 said, "Hey, if you want to earn some extra money, you can work in the parking lots helping direct traffic. You work an
Wow,
8-hour shift. You get paid, I think back then it was like $3 an hour. And then
wow,
when you're done, you get to go into the fair and have fun. And when you
wow.
do that and you get to know the people, that do the games because everybody's the same year after year. You know who you're going to get. You know who's there. You know who has the rides.
Yeah.
You get to know them. And I got to be about 15, and I worked my first county fair, and it was with Henry and Lori Brewer out of Cincinnati, Ohio, and I got to work a crossbow game. There was 6 targets in a real beautiful trailer, and you shot a crossbow, and if you hit a dead bullseye, you got a big stuffed animal.
Wow.
In that year that I worked that one spot, I won't ever say how much money I made or how I was paid because um, games people here are paid on percentage of the money that you bring in, and everybody's different.
Yeah.
But I made more money than the guy that was actually in the game for 5 years.
Wow.
But then
Well, like
again, I
it's
knew everybody. That was my hometown fair. It was easy to get anybody to play. And then the next year, I worked that fair again, and the guy who owned it got to know my dad and said, "Hey, can I take your son out work the next fair and the fair after this, and then we'll return him home?" So here I am, sophomore in high school, which is my second year of high school out of 4 years. And the amount of money that I earned in those 3 weeks, I could do whatever I wanted for the rest of the year. It was amazing.
well, that's it, and people don't it's all about personal skills, personal skills, isn't it?
Oh,
It's
personality,
you've
absolutely.
got to draw, and I think that's one of the good points of the showman. They have that personality that can draw you in to the rides because otherwise nobody go on them, and especially on the stalls that you started on, the side stalls,
Yeah.
because they're having to compete with the fair rides and everything else. So you have
Yeah,
to
but see
really
that
be able to draw people in.
now see the rides people never really talk to the customers here like to drag them in because that's just
Mm,
a natural thing.
mm,
But when you're a games person, or as now I know, side stores, you have to be able to what they call bark or
yeah,
call somebody. So, say for instance, you see a guy and a girl walking down the midway, and to get their attention, you'd say, "Hey, about time you get her a big one. Let's go. Here we go, right here. You ready?" Or you say something to catch them off guard to grab their attention.
yeah. See, that's one of the things that I would say is identical in America and over here, how they do it. Because the people who work the side stores here are exactly the same. They're really good at getting your attention, and they can banter with you, and they can
Yeah.
kind of lure you in.
Oh,
And
that's me.
and at the end of it, you're like, even if you didn't want to have to go, at the end of it, you're like, oh, go on then, here's a quid, let's have a go.
Yeah.
Mm,
And then next thing you know, you got 2 quid or $2 or $3 or
yeah,
$5. But
because
you know, it's just so fun that interaction.
yeah, that's it, and I think that is like a microcosm of the whole fun fair experience. I think the whole fun fair experience, from the minute you walk in, whether it be the side stores, the rides, or whatever, it's total interaction, and that's what I don't think you get at other places like theme parks. I don't think you get the interaction, and it's that I love.
I think the interaction I like the most is when you are associated with the fairs or festivals and you've
Yeah,
worked games for so long, and then you go to these amusement parks where there's games that nobody will play because they think it's completely impossible to get the biggest stuffed animal. And I think I have 2 pictures, or I'll have to add them to this my Facebook site, the original carnival ride pictures. Sorry to toot
yeah,
my own. Um, one of the games, it's called a milk can game, where there's a giant iron milk can and has a
yeah,
top on it, and you're given a bigger than normal ball, which we call a softball,
yeah.
and you have to throw it into the milk can and get it to go in. And the young lady I was dating at the time, we took a trip to Cedar Point, and I go, "Watch this. I'm going to get the 2 kids these giant stuffed animals." And she looks up and she goes, "You can't do that." She goes, "Matter of fact, I'll pay for it." I said, "Okay." She goes, "How much is it?" I said, "You get 3 balls for $5, and I will guarantee you, if you pay for it, which I didn't mind paying for it, I
Mm.
said, I will win each one of these kids one of these giant stuffed animals." And I sunk 2 out of the 3 shots perfect. And she just looked at me and goes, "You're kidding me, right?" I go, "No." because there is
There's a skill to it.
carnival. There's some skill to it, but in the States, a lot of games are optical illusions, throwing a dart, or
Yeah,
shooting billiards or shooting a machine gun or something. And when somebody would get mad when they didn't win, once you've called them in to play the game and you got them to play and they get pissed off,
yeah,
you'd say, "You're not really that good at throwing darts, are you?" "Well, no." "Well, why'd you play the game then if you're no good?"
yeah,
Or it's like, I'm white, and there's a joke in the United States, white people
yeah,
can't play basketball. I'm not
yeah.
going to
They
walk up to a long range game and play a basketball game when I can't shoot.
And of course, the other thing is you get people like myself that go up and say, "Okay, I'll have one go," fails, and then
And
start.
then you get
Then it's
mad.
yeah, gets mad and ends up spending like £5, £10 because I've got to do it after that point because it drives me mad. And before you know it, you've shelled out 10 quid and you've still not won nothing.
Right,
But that's the beauty of them, It's
right.
that is the real cleverness of it, and I
But
do I
I
I find it strange how the likes of yourself and Dave and how I love to see how we see fairs differently from the general public, and I love that difference as well.
have you see when you work for it though, you really understand it and you respect it more.
Oh, absolutely. I
You
totally can believe that.
Like I tell somebody, they're like, "You're really good at talking, or you like to talk, or you're good interaction with people."
Mm,
And in the fair industry, when you work games, that's how you make money.
absolutely.
You
If you can't talk to people, you're never going to make a dollar because you'll just stand there and people will walk by.
yeah. Like for instance, one of the things I used to like, I'm sorry about my phone making noises.
That's okay.
One of the things I used to like to do was when you would banter somebody,
Mm,
um, it's almost like you're guilting them into trying to win somebody something.
yeah,
For
definitely.
instance, if you knew a husband and wife would walk by, you would
Yeah.
say, "Hey, sir, your wife will let you have your allowance to play this game." And she would go, "Here, okay." And then she gave him a little money in there. You may have gotten $3 or $4, and he may have gotten a little prize, and he gives it to her, and they walk away, and they're smiling.
Yeah.
You see younger kids walk by, and you kind of want to rib on them. And when I mean younger, like 18, 19, 20, and you would see the boyfriend and girlfriend walking around and said, "Well, you got her something to eat, you got her sore feet. Now give her a teddy bear and make the day complete."
Yeah.
And they would play. And you always caught that attention. I would see a husband and wife get really mad at each other, or the boyfriend and girlfriend, and I'd say, "Hey, buddy, she's been asking for the big one for a while. Why don't you finally give it to her over here?" Now, most people will take that sexually, but it's to get
Definitely
her
would in the
big stuff.
UK.
Oh yeah, but see, that's what would make somebody laugh, and then they would stop and think about it, and then they would try. I just want you to walk away with a smile. You don't even have to win. You're gonna smile when you leave.
Yeah, and it's kind of strange. I think that's just a general mentality involving fairs. Like, I mean, if you look in the chat rooms and that, when you get the likes of Trips with Daz, Paul from PT Vlogs, Dave, Connor, myself, Mark, and that, when you see the banter that's flying backwards and forwards, it's very similar. It's that kind of mentality.
Right.
And
Or even on Facebook, like look the other day when Dave posted that picture in the Carnival Ride group, and
yeah,
we were picking on him by how bad the food looked. That
uh,
banter on that is only something we understand, not anybody else that's part of the group because we've seen it in the chat.
well, yeah. If you just walked into the middle of that, you'd be thinking, "The hell is what they talking about?"
Right.
But that's the part of it that I really enjoy. I really do, and that's what makes it fun for me. It really does, and that's all because of fun fairs. Like, I mean, I think everybody, yourself, me, Dave, everybody, fun fairs have given us something in our lives that we may not have got from anything else. You know, they definitely
But
do
I
for
think
me.
sure, in my profession, we learned in school to separate work and home life. Um,
Yeah, you'd
and
have
I
to.
think, yeah, and Dave gives me a lot of shit at times too on, well, there again, swear.
Yeah,
But he gives me shit about my name on YouTube. He goes, well, what's Video Poker King Columbus? And I said, well, I like to play video poker. It's a skill-based game. I said, I'm pretty lucky and make a lot of money doing it, but I have 400 videos in the can that I cannot post for certain reasons, which you and I have covered, and I won't get
yeah,
into it.
yeah. We know.
But but when I get into my vlogging, I'll have a different name, you
Yeah,
know. But it's just it takes so much sometimes just to create something and then to change it. You're like, I'll just leave it.
yeah. It's like, I mean, just our channel. Like, I mean, it's took us 17 months. 17 months, is it? About 15 months to get where we are now, and
Now,
we're
how
still
did you get? Now, did you name it Cobra Roll after a movement
a
in
roller
a roller
coaster.
coaster? Yeah,
Yeah,
see, I knew as soon as I saw it, I knew it, and that's what attracted me to it.
yeah. It's an element on a roller coaster. In fact, it was my son Ethan that named it. But like I said, like we spoke about the other day, like, I mean, it's why a lot of the channels, why they start. Like, I mean, I know Dave started from Cameron doing stuff, and then he kind of took the channel over when Cameron got bored.
Which I
Um,
think is great because he said camera even came up with the name Slothy Vlogs.
yeah. So, and you got Connor, who was very similar to us. Connor started his channel because he just wanted to get out. Um,
Sure.
and like, I mean, mine, as is fairly well documented, was to do stuff with the boys. And to be honest, I use fun fairs and theme parks as therapy
You have to.
because, because like I say, I've been diagnosed, as you know, as we spoke about, with generalized anxiety disorder and believe it or not, social anxiety disorder.
But
And
when you can get out and do something like that, it
it
it releases a chemical in your brain that just allows you to relax.
I'm I can honestly say I am more relaxed and happy at a fun fair with my boys or a theme park than I am anywhere. I really am. I just love it. I forget about all the tablets I have to take. I forget about all the worries and everything, and it's better than any therapy. And I do believe that's why if you go through the fun fair and the theme park community, there's so many people that are vlogging now that have been sufferers of some form of mental health issue. It's unreal.
Or maybe they're just missing something.
Um, I genuinely do think we're all missing something, and the fairs and the thumb fairs gives us something.
Sure.
It fills that void. Whether we, I don't know, whether we missed out as kids or what, I don't know. But
Like somebody asked me, why do you like to go to the casino? Besides the fact that being 10 minutes from my house.
yeah,
I said, well, I'm divorced, unfortunately. That was her choice, not mine.
mm,
I don't have any kids, and almost every single one of my friends are married.
yeah,
And being married as yourself, and if your wife was there, sometimes if you wanted to get away, your wife may not like that. If you want to say, hey, I
yeah.
want to, I want to take and see if your wife enjoys that stuff, that's awesome.
Well, yeah.
But if
Hopefully
she
when she
doesn't, yeah, and I know she's over here right now.
Yeah, I'm kind of lucky because she enjoys the fun fairs, and she's as happy with the fun fairs as she is for us to all go out to the fun fairs and her sit at home and read a book. So
Right.
I'm kind of really lucky in that respect.
Like Dave's wife, she'll go with him. She's not in a lot of the videos, but the
Yeah,
videos aren't about the adults really.
I know. Like, I mean, that's why on our vlogs you'll always notice the videos on the rides are always made by the kids,
Hmm.
and that was
And
a
that's
specific choice made because I wanted them to do the on ride. I video all the off ride stuff, but when it's on rides, it's always the kids that do it.
Is that why Dave shows Cy all the time? Just to show the kids.
Probably.
He's the biggest kid around.
I think Dave just does it to try and distract from his large forehead.
He needs hair implant. I told him.
He
That's
definitely
so.
needs he needs either that or to start wearing a cap. He's gonna give me
uh,
so much stick after this.
that's if he's even listening this far into the
Oh, he
podcast.
will. He will. He's got nothing better to do. He's done all his cooking for the day.
He'd be in. If I ate that, I'd be in the loo all day.
I tell you what,
So
if you ate Dave's cooking, just being in the loo would be a result.
yeah. So going back to the fairs. So I started off young, kind of naive about all the different workers and how they were treated. And but one thing I can say here is that all the people that I know who own amusement companies, people who own food concessions or game trailers, they provide so well for their employees. You always have really nice living quarters. They always have air conditioning. They have showers. They take care of their employees. And that was something that when you and I talked about, like the Winterland Festival or Fair,
Yeah.
that those people have to rent places because the government won't let them park their house trailers there.
As far as I'm aware, they're not allowed to put their trailers. I could be wrong, but as far as I'm aware, they have to rent accommodation because they can't put their
That's
trailers.
crazy.
And because some of the trailers, I kid you not, some of their trailers are bigger than my house.
Well,
You
yeah,
know,
that's how they are here, you know?
but yeah, but I do believe, like, I mean, I'm pretty sure that Johnny said on the vlog with Dave that they have to get separate accommodation.
Right. A non smoking apartment, right?
I guess.
I was laughing about that one. That was pretty funny. You said that.
But yeah,
But,
it is a
but
strange
I
one.
I mean the living accommodations here you would have like well you know what American trucks look like.
Yeah, I
Um
do.
but they would have a nice trailer on the back and then the trailer would be redesigned or remanufactured or maybe even custom built for that show owner.
Yeah.
And each room would probably have a couple bunks in it. Then they would have like a centralized room that may have two, three, or four showers, central air conditioning unit. Um, and then they may charge them $15 or $20 a week to live in it, but that's a drop in the bucket for the comfort that you get, you know.
But exactly. You know,
But go ahead.
it's like you say, it just shows that the people are looked after, though. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Because
You take care of your employees will take care of you.
and there's always this mistaken thought that they're not. There's always this mistaken thought that they live in these pokey little caravans and they live four or five to a tiny caravan, and I don't think people realise the owners of these fairs really care about their staff, probably more than your standard factory worker.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, these people are building their livelihood. You know,
Absolutely.
so I think there's always the misconception of how they live, which I think breeds the misconception about them in general.
Yeah, it's just, I think it goes back to maybe things that like from the 50s or the 1950s or the 60s when maybe sometimes people did sleep under rides.
Yeah,
Maybe they slept in a tent. Maybe that's what they wanted.
yeah. I think the biggest problem in the UK is I think showmen have been branded with the same brush as travelers, and they
Gotcha.
are and they are two very separate things. Um, and unfairly, they've been branded the same, and they're just not. But
No.
once again, it goes back to a theme that's run across this whole podcast, where the fair workers are concerned. It's all fake news. It's people not taking the time to actually, instead of just believing what they are told or what they hear, instead of taking the time to find out for themselves, it's so much easier just to say, "Oh yeah, they're travelers," or "Oh yeah, they're jippers," or "Oh yeah, they live in a crappy caravan," instead of actually going and finding out for themselves.
Right. So, I mean, I that's how I started in fairs. And I worked for that family for, let's see, I did 2 summers part-time, and then going into my junior and senior year of high school, which would be my third and fourth year, I would work almost the whole summer. And the money that I earned paid for my college. And
Wow,
the type of college that I went to, super expensive. Back then it was $30,000 a year.
wow,
So you made good money. And then I continued to work on and off for the last, well, since I was 15 till I'm 50 now, and I'll still work 5, 6 fairs a year.
wow, that's
Um,
cool.
yeah, but I've worked for probably some of the best showmen in the whole state. And I could be proud to say, there's one of the best families I ever worked for. Their last name is Woods, Woods.
Good
Jack and
name.
Jackie, great name, Jack and Jackie Woods. And they were one of the largest food concessionaires in the state of Ohio. And
Have
they
you
were the
never have you never
good.
been tempted to buy your own stall
I
or
I
ride?
I had a chance back when I was just graduating college. Jack Woods, the guy that I worked for, he had, you'll call them stores or whatever, and I'll call them games.
Yeah,
I had a chance to buy, I think he had 4 game trailers at that, all very successful, great locations, same fares all the time. When you buy something, you're not only buying the games, you're also buying the fairs that they go to.
yeah,
It's called a route, and you would get to
yeah,
play that route. But I didn't have the money at that time because I would have to buy 4 trucks to pull each vehicle.
yeah.
Um, I didn't have the money to buy the living quarters, and then you pretty much have to have a semi to pull the living quarter semi truck. And the time just wasn't right.
Yeah, it
But
would have had to fit, everything had to fit right for you to be able to do it.
yeah, but right now, the way that our economy is, um, when I started working games, it could cost you 50, well, 50 cents to play a game, maybe $1. And now it seems like the average game is $5 every time you play.
Yeah, and like you say, now isn't really the good time to become somebody new in that environment
No,
because of the economy and because of everything that's going. Realistically, you need to be somebody who's has the reputation that can still pull people in and everything
right.
else with that, don't you?
Yep. But, I got to work for the Woods family, so they were amazing people, took care of their employees. I got to work just a couple nice fairs. One fair I did, and I will ask everybody if you're still possibly listening and haven't fallen asleep yet. There's a fair in Cleveland called the IX Center. I is in the letter I, X Center Amusement Park. And that's where you would take all the rides that you would see at a state fair, fun fair, and you completely put them indoors for 30 days. And you can look those up on YouTube, and you would be amazed at the rides that fit into this building, which is an old tank plant where they used to build tanks during the war in the city of
Yeah.
Cleveland, right out by the airport. And I think this building is like 3.5 million square feet. It's
Wow.
just gigantic. And they fill up like 1/4 of it full of rides. And that fair lasts 30 days long, indoors. No rain, no nothing, no snow. I've worked it when there's 10 inches of snow on the ground and people are
Wow.
still showing up.
See,
And
that's the cool thing about indoors, isn't it? It's year round.
yep.
In
And
fact,
that and that was
I say
that was awesome.
I'm genuinely surprised there aren't more of those in the UK.
I don't think you really have buildings though that could hold something like that, do you?
Yeah, yeah, we have exhibition centres.
Okay.
They could
And,
do
and
them in exhibition centres.
And you could fit a lot of these rides
Yeah.
because you
I
could
mean,
put like a vertigo. You know what a vertigo is, the tall swing ride
you
that
probably couldn't
goes
put a
up the
boost.
top.
Probably couldn't put a booster ride in, but you could definitely get things
No.
like extremes and Super Bowls
Oh,
and that
yeah.
in.
Oh, yeah. You could put roller coasters in this building, full
You could probably do
super
little,
mouses.
probably just about, yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Flume
because
rides, like water flumes. They've
be-
had
oh
looping
yeah,
coasters before.
you could fit those in because, like I say, these exhibition centres they have the ride expos like IAPA,
Yep. Yep.
and in fact there was supposed to be one later this year at Earl's Court. IAPA was supposed to be coming to London this year, so
With
it
That's
does.
what IAPA Europe, right?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
So I'm genuinely surprised that they haven't, by us in Birmingham, we have the something called the National Exhibition Centre that's made up of like 15 halls.
Okay.
And you could, in two, three halls, you could have something the equivalent size of the Goose Fair.
Wow.
And I'm surprised they haven't done that, to be honest. I don't know what the logistics of it would be, but I am
Probably,
genuinely,
I would probably think it would be the cost.
that's the only
And
thing I
then,
can think of. But
well, but your showmen need time to have some rest. If you're running 10 months out of the year and they need
yeah.
2 months to reset themselves and redo the rides, there's no need for it because if your people come out, I was amazed to watch Winter Wonderland on a busy day and go, oh my God, look at all these people at Hyde
Oh,
Park.
Winter Wonderland on a busy day is horrendous. It is so busy you can barely walk. Like I mean, the walkways and the aisles are full.
It's
On a
like
busy
Cedar
day.
Point on a hot day in the middle of summer.
Yeah, it's not fun to be honest because it's too full. Um,
Now,
but
see, for
Goose,
me, it would be fun because I've never been there.
but Goose Fair on the Saturday of the Goose Fair, that's exactly the same. It's absolute. Like I mean, I think last year they had something ridiculous like 500,000 people visit, which for the
Yeah,
Goose Fair is massive amount of people.
that's crazy.
You see, that's the thing. The fair rides are still popular over here. Hopefully, they'll be more popular after. But I do think the indoor thing would really work well in the UK. I think you'd get a lot of visitors,
Right.
and that's what surprises me why they haven't done it. Especially when a lot of these exhibition centres are just sitting empty a lot of the year. So, but that's an interesting one. So,
So that's how I got started in it, and I've worked for, like I said, the greatest people in the woods, and
yeah,
I worked for somebody, Tony Albanese, who I actually they made a home video that I posted on the Carnival Ride Pictures group, and you see kind of people get upset in these videos.
yeah,
But the one thing that now one of the big differences that you and I spoke about before, you usually with your fun fairs, you may have a couple days in between each one,
yeah,
and and that's something that you don't have here in the States sometimes. They have stuff called it's called a circus jump or an overnight jump. So
yeah,
as we talked about, and you know the logistics of where Dayton, Ohio was and stuff like that.
yeah,
Um, you may play a spot in Dayton, Ohio, and that will finish over the holiday. That night, you tear everything down, including rides. Through the night, you drive to your next spot, which could be when you're pulling a trailer, it could take you 3 hours to get there. You pull on the lot at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning. It takes you a couple hours to set up your your trailer, and then you open for that day in 2 hours.
wow,
And or the rides may get there at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I think all the rides opened up at noon because the guys wouldn't even get to sleep. They'd tear the
yeah,
ride down, drive, and then set it up. 6 hours of setup, and then they opened up for the day
and run the rides.
and run the ride. So circus jumps were a really, really tough thing in
Yeah,
the States.
I don't think they do those here. Normally, there's a couple of days between them shutting down in one place. In fact, sometimes there can be a week between them closing down one place and starting the other. Normally, what happens is they finish up on a Sunday, and then they open up in the new town on a Thursday. So they give themselves 2 or 3 days in between. And
Right.
normally the fairs run, unless it's a really big fair, they'll run from like the Thursday through to the Sunday, and then move on to the next town.
Now, usually that's how it is, but sometimes these fairs, these county fairs run so close together.
Yeah.
I think one time we did four circus jumps back to back to back to back.
Wow. See,
Yeah.
that would be a killer. That would be that would be
And
hard graft.
and now remember, these fairs are 7 days long.
Yeah.
So if you take 4 weeks times 7 days, that's 28 days straight. That's a month.
Yeah.
And
That's
that's 12 to 14 hours a day plus your 24 hours for moving stuff.
yeah. That would be a killer. That really
Yeah.
would. But
So
like you
Dave,
say,
if you want to become a man, come on over here and we'll teach you how to work like a man on these rides.
it's not tall enough.
I don't even know how tall is he? Is he real tall or is he
Have you
short?
have you seen an Ewok?
That's only about 2 foot tall.
There you go, there's Dave.
No, no, really.
No,
I mean, like everybody, like Connor looks like he's extremely tall.
Connor, Connor is 6 foot plus. Connor's about 6.5 foot, I think. I think
Six
Dave's
foot
about.
five?
I think he ain't far off that. Yeah.
God, he's tall.
Connor is that. I'd say Dave was about 5'9", about 5'9".
Now wait a minute. I'm 5'10", so I'm Ewok size. Thanks, Craig.
No problem. Um. So, what does the future life? What does the future have in store? Obviously, the hopefully the Facebook group is going to grow and grow and grow. You're going to look at doing a fair channel, YouTube channel.
I will. I'm trying to get a hold of Dave whenever he can stop acting so silly, and I can
Good
connect
luck
through
with that.
Facebook. Yeah, when I can, or you or Connor or anybody, and I can get a little bit of guidance on what equipment I should buy for filming. I know Dave loves GoPros.
GoPro 7.
Yeah, he's like, well, I always buy one that's a couple years old, so that way I don't have to worry about it. And
Yeah, the
I'm
GoPro
a junk,
7.
I'm a junkie. I like the new technology.
Well,
The pictures. Go ahead.
Con, Dave and me use a GoPro 7. Connor uses a
Okay.
GoPro 8. So you've got the best of both worlds there.
Now, if you look at the pictures from my group, all of those were shot on a Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus phone.
Yeah.
And, and some people look at them and go, "Oh, dude, that's fake. What magazine did you get that out of?" And I said, "No, it's just that's how good that camera is on that phone." The video of the toboggan was filmed on that phone.
Yeah,
But now, go ahead.
the problem you're going to have with that is filming on ride.
But I'm like Connor, if I don't go on a lot of big rides, like I'll do the roller coasters, I'll do the Ferris wheels, I'll do some stuff like
A lot of them won't let you film with a phone.
right. Well, and I'll
But
get a GoPro, but
it's because of the health and safety. You know, if you drop
right,
it and it
sure.
flies back, it can have somebody,
Hmm.
Um, like I said, the majority of the YouTubers use GoPros because they're so flexible and you get such good quality out of them.
Right. And then you have a
Uh,
nice holder, tripod holder or whatever.
yeah, you can get a holder, you can get the cases for them. The beauty is as
Now,
well
one thing I
the
will say,
waterproof.
I like Dave how he bought that little box camera that he'll sit like at the bottom of a ride when it's in operation and it's filming
It's a,
upwards.
it's a GoPro.
Oh, that's brilliant.
That's an old GoPro.
That's brilliant. That is such a neat thing watching like a fireball or a freak out
Yeah.
and see
Um,
him do that.
like I say, I use the GoPro 7, and funnily enough, for any slow mo shots I do of the rides, I use the iPhone.
Okay.
I still find that the slow mo on the iPhone gives the best quality of anything. You know,
Okay.
it's pinpoint. So, so that's what I use at the moment. It's like, I mean, I've got about 4 or 5 other cameras, but I don't use them.
Right.
Uh, we originally started out with a Sony handheld camera, but you find after a while they are really difficult to get a lot of shots with, and they're just really not ideal for vlogging.
Sounds good. Yeah.
So
So finishing answering your question, I obviously with the virus going around, We're our
Yeah,
It's amazing. A lot of our festivals are canceling 3 months out right now. It's so scary.
they are here as well. Like I say, we're looking at the Goose Fair in October now, and there's still a lot of skepticism whether that'll go on. So it's a scary thought, but we have, like I say, realistically, and I know Dave is, and realistically, we're looking at next year's plans already because I think to a degree, I think this year's a write-off.
You'll get some, but not a lot. You know,
I think a lot of people at the moment are of the mindset is if we get Winter Wonderlands on,
you'd be happy.
we'd settle for that. Goose Fair, Hall Fair would be an absolute bonus. Anything else in between those or after those would be an absolute bonus. Um, but at the moment, it's who knows.
Right. But I
Uh,
think
l-
once like you ask what's in the future,
yeah,
well, I have a person that came into my life. She is involved in the business. Her family is well known, and what's actually funny is um, I've seen some of their trailers that their games are built into in England in your Funfair video.
awesome.
Her family, their last name is Ottebacher, and they make game
Ooh,
trailers, which you see a lot of the famous game manufacturers put stuff in.
yeah.
Bob Space Racers with whack-a-mole and stuff like.
Oh yeah.
And we began talking just before Christmas. Looks like there's a nice interest in possible relationship. So Jasmine, hi.
Hello, Jasmine.
Matter of fact, when I went to Cleveland the other day, I saw her, and we're hitting it off really good. And
Well,
she
that's really
says,
good.
yeah, she says, will you come work for me times that I need you in the summer? And I said, well, you can't be my love interest because I can't sleep with the boss. I'll get in trouble. And she started laughing. She goes, fine, whatever. But her family has like French fry trailers. They have funnel cake trailers. I mean,
Awesome.
so if I can get back in the business that way, sure.
But that would be really good. To be able to do a job that you love means you never work a day in your life, which is a bonus.
I guess, have you ever worked for a fair?
No.
You got to do it. Get to know a showman. Go
Um,
work
I
in a,
think I
go
think
work,
my days of working for fairs are long gone. Uh, Family and everything else stops that.
sure.
So perhaps when the kids are older, who knows? I'll probably be too old to do it then. But
Ah,
you know,
it's in your blood.
yeah. But so's the cholesterol.
Yeah, I get you there. You may drop that cholesterol if you work for the fairs.
I need to drop something.
Oh
Um,
my God, you'd be surprised how much weight you lose when you work for a fair.
oh, I can imagine how much. You never see an overweight rider. Put it that way.
No. And it's funny because I used to be really skinny. I was like 175 pounds, and then I got married, and my wife was a fabulous cook. And unfortunately, she developed bad back problems, and I spent a lot more at home when I wasn't doing a normal job. And I ballooned to like 250 pounds.
Wow.
I was like, ugh. But now I'm back to 175, so I feel good.
Awesome. So all
Just
in
send me
all,
some Dave's food, and I'll lose more weight.
I said you sent a Dave's food, yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
all in all, then the future's looking fairly rosy.
yeah. Just I'll I have a mother left in my life. She's my
That's
world.
awesome.
She's my
Awesome.
business partner, of course.
Yeah.
Um, when she passes, am here by myself with a moving and storage company and enjoying life, and that's what I
Hey,
got to do.
well, that's brilliant. And that's a brilliant way to end the podcast because how better can you end than being happy? And
Isn't that
I'd
what? And that's what the fairs are about, being happy.
absolutely. Well, I always do this at the end of our podcast. First of all, thank you for coming on, Tom. It's been absolutely brilliant. I've really appreciated it. And
Craig, thank you for inviting me.
I know it's been my pleasure. And we'll have to do a follow-up one because I know you've got so many more stories that you can tell, and it'll be an absolute pleasure to listen to them.
Sounds good.
So I'm going to do what I always do, which is I shall give you the floor to promote and advertise anything you want. So I hand over to you, Tom.
All I ask, anybody that's still possibly listening, check out my Facebook page, The Original Carnival Ride Pictures, or type in anything in the state of Ohio. Type in Google Ohio amusement companies. Look at the beautiful showmen in this state that we have that own the rides, and most of them have videos with them. You can see how beautiful everything is here in the state of Ohio. If you come to Ohio, feel free to contact me. I'll put you up in my house. I have 4 extra bedrooms and 3 extra bathrooms. Everybody's welcome. There's always an open invitation.
Awesome. Can't say fairer than that. Tom,
Thanks, Craig.
thank you very much, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. And
Cheers.
ladies and gentlemen, I give you Tom from Ohio. And like you say, go check out his page. All the details will be below in the description, as well as all the video links. Check out
And
his live Facebook group. It is really good. And last word,
post all
Tom,
the pictures you want, post all the videos you want. Doesn't matter. That's what it's about.
unless it's Dave's food.
Now, God, let's not do that again.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for being
All right,
on.
Craig. Thanks, buddy.
And thanks to everybody who's listening. And we'll see you again on the next podcast. So goodbye, everybody, and stay safe.
Cheers.
Bye.